Greetings, sentient beings. This stream is not intended for children. There will be adult language and themes. So YouTube cut us off with a very generic form letter about violating community guidelines, and no one in the stream really understands why they cut us off. So we'll see if they get back to me, if they have some kind of a reason. So, but yeah, at this point, I don't know what's going on. And oh, okay. Hi, Doc. Basically kind of waiting for everybody else to show up. I sent the stream key out, but I don't know where everyone is at this point. They could still be in the old link arguing. Hello.
Yeah, I just jumped off on accident.
Okay, I was wondering where you went to. You're sounding pretty quiet. Can you turn up your mic a little bit?
I can try.
Yeah, that's better. So yeah, basically just kind of waiting for people to find the new one. So what's been going on with you?
Well, quite a bit actually. Of course, there's this whole COVID thing or whatever that's really messed me up with work. Other than that, I have a girlfriend that's been taking up a lot of my time, and so I haven't been making videos or anything. I've been spending a lot of time with her. Which, interestingly, she is a witch. So that's been a little bit different. Can you hear me?
Well, yeah, you are a little garbled, but I can hear you. Yeah, I spent a lot of years in the pagan community, so somebody saying they're a witch doesn't faze me at all.
Yeah, well, and me being a hardcore atheist and everything else, I thought it would be a big problem, but it's not. She understands that I don't believe certain things, and I understand that she does believe certain things. And just because we've come to that understanding, it really has not been a problem.
Yeah, well, I've dated people who didn't share my faith, and it's like, yeah, as long as you're not going to push yours on me, I don't have an issue with that.
Right. I mean, it becomes awkward. Her family is very ritualistic, and I'm not really used to dealing with that because rituals to me pretty much don't are meaningless. They're just rituals, just things that humans do. And so it's been a very, very different dealing with that.
Well, there are a few things I do that are still symbolic rituals, and I know they don't really have any particular meaning. It's just kind of a bit of theater that's, especially around holidays.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One thing that's on my mind this evening is I made a video about how God almost killed me, which is pretty much when I stopped making videos because that video was hard to make. And I just got a response from a guy who said he was suicidal, and that's really bothering me. And I don't have a way to contact him, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a scary situation. I've been there myself. That I actually had a girlfriend call me up one time and tell me that she had already taken a bottle full of pills and then changed her mind.
Yeah, that's kind of.
And I didn't have a car at the time, so I was over there on my bicycle at 4 o'clock in the morning, and no way to get her to the hospital.
No, that's not good at all.
So, well, we managed to get her through it, and she was actually liked the idea that it was done rather quietly and that her mother didn't have to know about it. But
Oh,
it's a scary episode.
that's definitely understandable. Definitely. So what have you been up to recently? I see you're very active with Midnight America and Midday America.
Yeah, well, and also on Fridays at 4 o'clock Central, I'm co-hosting on Black Sofa's channel, his isolation chat.
Oh, cool. That's
So,
awesome.
other than that, it's just kind of been, getting settled into my new place, and I've been, building a lot of shelving and things like that.
Oh, that's good.
I had a shelving unit that took up 2 full walls of the living room in my old place, and I just, knocked it all down to the flat boards to move it. So now it's, like cutting the pieces and, refitting it to fit the new place.
Oh, right. That's always fun.
So, yeah, I really, I didn't have much furniture, and I'm not buying furniture. I'm just building it to fit the space.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. It's just a pain when you have to fit everything and make things work. But then once you get done, it'll probably be very, very nice. Something you'll really like. Okay, so
Yeah, yeah, and organization isn't my strong suit, so it's taking me a while, but trying to eye it with having space to store everything that I need to have. My various collections of my games and all my Legos and things.
right, right. Let's see. So lavender ladies here, spooky bed hair, YouTube me, Gruesome. Bunch of people back in.
Okay, yeah,
Are they
people are starting to find it.
Yeah, hopefully they'll jump in here.
Yeah, I sent the links out to the Twitter group for people to join in. So, but yeah, they were still kind of discussing something. The old stream was still going on StreamYards, and they were
Oh,
having a lively discussion in there when I had to step out to set up the new one. So, but I think that I think Neil and Julie were heading to bed already.
Yeah, I think so.
So, but yeah, Diana, why don't you hop back in here? Yep. Okay. Yeah, we got Doc Fearson and Spooky and TV Tube.
I have not met TV Tube.
And Tria. Oh, really?
I do not believe so.
Well, he is one of the people who is just kind of always in the side chats everywhere.
Yeah, like I said, I haven't live streamed or done much of anything.
Yeah, your mic is kind of crackly. I'm not sure why.
Okay, let me see if I can fix that real quick.
Yeah, it's I can still understand what you're saying. Just seems to be a bit static from somewhere.
Okay, maybe that'll work a little better.
Yeah, that sounds clearer.
Now if I can get my volume up so I can hear.
Okay, well, I hear you fine now.
Is Diana coming in, or have you seen?
Well, yeah, nobody yet. So I was sure it had posted to the groups.
The spooky's cracking me up. My audio must have been pretty bad.
Okay. Just trying to juggle the tabs.
So what's going? How's this COVID thing affected you?
Atria.
Hello.
Well, for me, the biggest thing is that, after the move, I should have been establishing a new customer base here. There's Darren.
Hi.
So, of course, I, haven't had the chance to be out among people and get new customers. So I've had to fall back on my side hustle of mostly selling Lego online. And that's actually been working out pretty well for me. And I guess it's because with everybody stuck at home and needing something to do, I've been getting a lot more orders for the Lego sets than I usually would. So
okay then.
So all in all, yeah, I'm really not hurting nearly as bad as most people are. And I'm not worried at this point. I think I'll do fine through this month and next month at least.
Yeah, let's hope that this whole inconvenience, shall we call it, doesn't last too much longer than a year.
Yeah.
I'm reasonably
and that's
well
basically
insulated.
I'm figuring that I think we need to dig in through the end of the year and not expect anything to change much from how it is now.
Yeah.
Because it's going to take at least that long before they've got a vaccine or any really effective way of treating this.
I'm not reasonably well insulated because I'm on Social Security, and at least for now, I'm assured of money every month. But I know that a lot of people do not have that luxury.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's me too. I'm on a partial disability, so I've got some income guaranteed every month. It's not enough to cover everything, but I know I'll at least have the rent paid, and I just gotta bring in enough to cover some of the other bills.
Okay, then. Well, I don't know. You could always whore out the cat.
Listen, I need to start doing that because that little bastard is eating all of my money still. And he's cute enough. He looks good in a bow tie. You need to get a stripper pole for him and get him on Instagram. Like I've been threatening.
There you go. Oh, man. Okay, let's see now. He's frozen in place, isn't he?
What do you mean?
Well, he's not broken, right?
He is
I'm
broken.
being a pain in the arse. He's fixed, right?
Yeah, he's fixed. Yeah.
Oh, so she wouldn't be interested in him.
Oh, no, we had to get him fixed because he was spraying all around the house. And he's an escape artist, and he would be like, oh, there's a pretty female out there. And I'm like, no, we're not doing this.
Well, I don't know. Being a Tom, he could work out from under the whole kitten support thing,
Well, the thing was it aggravated me because, I live in a city where there's almost no excuse not to neuter and spay your cats. There's
what,
so
do they come
many
to you
different...
or something?
Huh?
Do they come to you or something?
In this person's case, they would have actually, because the thing is like I said, that's why I said there's almost no excuse. There are exceptions, and I understand that people have things they just can't do, but this family could have. They had a member of the household that was over the age of 55 living in their house. And if you're over the age of 55 and under a certain income, they have a van that will come and park in your yard or apartment complex or wherever you're at. They will park there, come get your cat or your dog, and they will take them out to the van. And it's basically like a mini vet ambulance.
Sort of like a MASH for cats?
Yeah. And they
Okay.
will actually do that. They will
Huh.
actually spay and neuter your animals for you and then bring them back in.
Well, that's
And
really
it's-
cool that they'll even
I'm-
come out to your house for that.
And there's a waiting list. It does sometimes take a little while because there's not a lot of them.
Sure.
But we do have 4 or 5 of those running around this city because we have such a huge overpopulation of stray animals. And a lot of people wind up dumping all the extras at the rescues.
We have to watch the stray alligators too, you know.
Well, yeah. Well, the alligators, that's taken care of by the hunters, but that's a different system. But it's basically so that the shelters don't get overloaded, because they're trying to turn as many of our shelters into no-kill shelters as they can. But if you want to have no-kill shelters, you have to be able to, actually bring in as many animals as you can. And if you aren't controlling the pet population, unfortunately, a lot of those no-kill shelters go either we can't take care of it, and then the animals are left out on the streets to create more problems, or they're like, well, we can't be a no-kill shelter. We don't have room, and we can't send these animals back away once they're at our doorstep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the resources do become an issue. In Minnesota, there are several trap, neuter, release programs going on to deal with the feral cats.
Yeah, we have trap and release here. You do have to buy the cage. Cages are not provided anymore because they just can't afford to do it.
Okay.
But once you have the cage, it's yours, and you can let your friends borrow it. You can keep it yourself. Those kinds of things. But yeah, it's the other family that had them before me. They had no excuse. They really didn't. They just didn't want to bother with getting him neutered. And that was one of the things that pissed me off about getting him.
Okay. Yeah, with me, I know it's been a while. I mean, Sylvia's almost 4 years old. I set her birthday somewhat arbitrarily, not exactly arbitrarily, at the 27th of May. And then mostly it's a matter of getting her across town to have the procedure done. I mean, I can get on a waiting list and have a reduced fare spaying and all that good stuff. But I have to go to the north side to do it.
Your situation is different. That's kind of complicated. Getting your cat in the carrier and riding the bus, and I know it takes a long ass bus ride.
Yeah, because you're going downtown and then you've got to go out of downtown to the animal friend's place and everything else. This is why I can't do it during winter or late autumn, for example, because going down there, okay, maybe, but coming back with a cat totally blah on coming out of anesthesia and the whole bit, and the whole body temperature regulation is all screwed up and everything else. You really don't want to have that cat out in say 15 degrees Fahrenheit and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like I said, in my case, I didn't want to do the paperwork, but because of my income, I could have gotten him neutered for free, and my income is not that much different than what the previous households would have been. And it might have been a little bit higher, but not by much. Not by much. So.
Yeah, I'm hoping that if ever I get the stimulus money, I'll be able to take care of things. If ever I get the stimulus money. Damn it.
Yeah, my sister hasn't gotten hers yet, and I'm thinking they're trying to hold off on that as long as they possibly can, because she's disabled. and on SSI. So
Moo. Yeah, I know quite a few people who haven't seen a pound of it yet, but it would be nice. It really would. Because the damn thing is, I go to the, get my payment or whatever it is, where you check on the status, and they always say, okay, we can't give you this status. We don't either don't have the information, or you're not eligible, or about 3 or 4 things, and I can't find out which one of them. I mean, I'm reasonably sure I'm eligible. So is it a case that they don't have the name and address I'm giving them? I'd like to know that, but I'd have to talk to a human to find out, and I can't call them. They won't answer the phone.
Is there some chance that they that Social Security still has your old address on file or something?
It's entirely possible.
So they may have tried to send it to the wrong address. Because I did get mine, in the last 2 days of April.
Yeah, I get my Social Security check directly deposited.
Okay.
So it's not that.
Well, then it shouldn't have been a problem. Then it should have been directly deposited into the same account.
Yeah, I suspect that that people who are on disability and SSI and SSDI and all of that, I suspect that they are moving slowly in hopes that they won't have to pay that particular group out.
Yeah,
well, I know other people who are on Social Security disabilities that did receive it.
Yeah, I checked this morning and still nothing. And I check every 3 or 4 days. And they should know who the hell I am. I've been receiving Social Security disability for 30 years. Christ.
Yeah, if you're receiving the regular payments from them, I don't understand what would be the hang-up then.
My girlfriend just got hers. I got mine about 3 weeks ago. Her sister, who is on SSI, I don't think has actually gotten it yet. I think there is a delay or something with people on SSI. My daughter got it.
That's interesting. Mom Nato, who is chief engineer on my live streams, her son is on SSI and has received his. So, I don't know what's going on with any of it. I don't know that they know. What?
It may come down to pure volume of processing. And the issue with that could be, I can't remember, there's a principle that basically the more people you train to do a job, the slower that it takes to get the job done, because you're spending more time and energy on training than actually completing the job. And that might be the case. It's just a pure volume issue.
Maybe. Yeah, it's happily, I am not totally cash strapped or anything else. I can get by without it. It would be nice to have it. It would help a little bit and everything else like that. But I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. Yeah, and the other thing I'm waiting for is my landlord's office to open up so I can get some of the paperwork done. We have a rent rebate program here in Pennsylvania, but I really can't easily get his part of the paperwork certified until I can get it to him.
Yeah, TV Tube said that he's receiving SSD, but his dad said he claimed him as a dependent, so he's not getting it. So, Tria, that could be affecting your situation too, if your dad's claiming you and your sister as dependents.
He doesn't claim her as a dependent.
Oh, okay.
It actually, I think part of the reason why he doesn't is that it doesn't actually give him really any benefits, and it doesn't give her any benefits either. So he just doesn't really do it.
Okay.
And I also think that Florida is kind of a bit weird about how you claim people. Because if it looks like, while you're doing the paperwork and the reviews, if it looks like you're helping the other person, then Florida has a tendency to want to get you kicked off. But if you're roommates and everybody is paying their fair share as roommates, then typically it's more, I wouldn't say it's smiled on, but it's, definitely the best way to go.
Yeah, different states handle that differently.
Yeah, so my sister is a roommate, not a daughter getting help, basically, as far as the state of Florida is concerned. And I think that might be part of his reasoning behind not claiming her, is if he claims her, then that looks more like family is helping out instead of the roommate situation.
Yeah, I know Minnesota tends to make the distinction at, do you have meals together? Because they feel if you're preparing food together, then you're basically a family. If you're not preparing meals together, then they treat you as being separate family units.
Oh, so that's interesting. So even if you are friends, not related in any way or anything like that, but it's just easier to make one plate of food and you set it on the table and you eat that food together, then you're considered a family unit.
Yeah, well, I think they went with that because I think it has to do with how they figure if people are eligible for food stamps, if other people's incomes should be counted on that eligibility.
Yeah,
so
but
I think that basically just became the criteria for all of the social programs here.
Yeah, but if you're trying to get those programs, are you really going to offer up that information? I mean, some people are going to be dumb enough to do it, but I would think in my case, I would be like, well, unless they ask me directly, I'm going to be like, why offer that up?
I know there are some jurisdictions that stipulate that in order to be in a not family or anything, you've got to have a separate room with a number on it of all the. So you would have to have a 2-bedroom dwelling, and each of the bedrooms would have to have a little sticker on its door. Unit number 1, unit number 2, and then the rest of the place would be a common area.
Well, yeah, so then you would technically have a separate mailing address.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know what's going on. I know I should probably be checking and seeing what's going on with Hufflepuff's check. I don't feel like it.
There's probably not a whole lot you can do.
Yeah,
probably not. And I have other fights right now. I do not need to be trying to fight the government over something that could possibly put her in trouble anyways. So I swear that $2,000 limit is so shitty. It is shitty and terrible, and it is, out of all the rules, I think that one's, if it's not the worst, it's like in the top 3 or 4 worst things about being on SSI. Is the limit of how much you can have before you get cut off.
What are you speaking of? Assets like 2,000 in the bank, or are you speaking?
Yeah, it's like you are not allowed to have more than 2,000 in the bank, and technically you're not supposed to have more than $2,000. Period. But again, nobody in their right mind is going to be like, yeah, I got like $5,000 under, hanging around my house.
Yeah, and if you're someone like me who likes to have a little bit of a pad, if you will, You cannot have that. They expect you to live hand to mouth.
Yeah.
My situation is a little bit better being on the full disability. I'm actually able to have enough to where I've got a month's rent set aside. Actually, what I'll do is, and maybe this helps a little bit, at the end of the month, say around the 25th, I will take that out of the savings account. I will wire it to the landlord. And my rent for example, my rent for June will be paid at the end of May.
Yeah.
And then when I receive my check on the 3rd of June, I'll take that much out and stick it back into the savings account. And I even do that a little bit, to a little bit of an extent with some of the regular bills I have to pay. Yeah, but were I to have enough like that set aside where anybody could know about it to be comfortable, then I'd be in trouble. Yes.
Yeah.
So the other thing
Yeah.
I'd have to do is, hi guys, if you're listening, get a floor safe and stick it in there in cash, basically.
Yeah. It's
Well,
like
and
I
that's
said,
why
it's
nobody
one of
can get off the system, because they
Right.
get penalized for
Mhm.
trying to save a little bit of money.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the thing is that, we could deal without the actual monthly payments for my sister. It would be rough as hell, but we could do it. But if she loses the payments, then she also loses her insurance that covers basically everything. Because of how severe her birth defect was when she was born, she was put on a kind of insurance where she doesn't pay a single cent.
Okay, then.
We've never paid, well, we have paid for her medical, but only when Mom decided that she didn't like dealing with SSI and then switched over to TRICARE Prime for a little while, which is military insurance. And my sister had a lapse in insurance for about a month or two. And we had to pay a couple of bills, but like everything has always been covered for her. Which is how it should be for everybody. It really should. Instead of the other way around.
Yeah.
That's the situation I'm in right now, but I currently don't have any medical coverage, so I can't get my prescriptions refilled.
Fun.
Unfortunately for me, none of them are life-threatening conditions, but it's part of why I'm getting even less sleep than I usually did. Because the one that suppresses the tics from the Tourette's has run out. And so that means when I'm laying down trying to sleep, I'm having random muscle twitches all over the place and my foot kicking.
Yeah.
Yuckies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got paperwork in for that, but who knows how long it's going to take them to process everything.
So, Tria, we have not met, and I am kind of curious about. I just subbed your YouTube channel. Obviously, I didn't get a chance to look at it, but can you tell me a bit about what you do and then why you're here?
Do you do naked dancing on that channel, or is that the other one?
You know what? I'm so pissed off at YouTube telling me that I'm breaking TOS when I'm not, and pulling my shit down. I'm halfway tempted to show the cans, just on my way out. Just because I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. If you're gonna be like accusing me of this shit, I might as well do it.
Yeah. Well,
okay. What happened? What happened? I haven't had
I cannot live stream on my channel. I live stream on my channel, and within 5 minutes, I get pulled.
Oh.
The exact same way that Purple did, except
Yeah.
Purple, fortunately, was able to start another live stream, which I'm grateful for because I don't want any of my friends going through what I went through. I don't even know if I can upload a video because I'm not able to do videos right now. I don't have concentration for it. I can maybe edit for 5 minutes before I need to do something else. And I can't live stream. So,
You know what? I'm very curious. I'm just looking at this flag report thing.
Yeah.
I
Amiga's
don't-
trying to self-censor so we don't get shut off again.
Anyway, I'm wondering if I'd kind of like to experiment to see if start a little stream and see if you hit that flag, if it immediately kills the channel.
It shouldn't have been a problem with me. It really
Yeah.
shouldn't have, because I'm not even big enough to attract trolls. I had like maybe 4 people in my audience, and I knew all 4.
Yeah, no, I think what happened to me was probably the bot picking up a keyword, but
What happened today?
yeah, because as far as I know,
Yeah.
I didn't see anyone in the side chat. Well, there was that one West person was the only one in the side chat I wasn't familiar with.
Yeah, but Wes was acting kind of nice, so I don't know.
Yeah, no, I didn't think that he was causing a problem.
But like, and it's been over a month, so I might test and see. But what I really think might be happening, because I've heard other people complain, is that let's say that YouTube is got a lot of traffic because, and this is just a theory, but let's say YouTube has a lot of traffic going, and so it's slowing everybody down. Well, they could spend the money to upgrade things and make, give people space and stuff like that, but they're cheap asses. So instead, they up the bots so that when things are, when the traffic is high, the bots go, you know what, we're going to bump the people with the lowest amount of subs, and then we'll call it breaking community guidelines or breaking terms of service, and we won't punish them for it other than pulling their stuff down. Because Purple, you said you didn't get a community strike, right?
Yeah.
Okay, YouTube's been running slow all day.
Yeah, what you're saying would make a lot of sense.
Because I tried to do my streams during prime time, because that's when I knew I'd have people.
Well, and it could be that just, when it hit midnight their time, that their system could have gone into some kind of maintenance mode, reducing the capacity. So to make up for that, it could have gone through and, kicked out what streams didn't have very many people watching.
Yeah, because basically it said, hey, you broke TOS, but you didn't break TOS.
Yeah.
You can have it reviewed. And then the moment I went and put it in review, within 2 minutes, my stream was back up, but I had already been kicked off. And it was like, well, it was a 5-minute stream. Why fucking leave it on YouTube now? It doesn't make sense.
So what is your channel about?
I talk about asexuality, and I talk about being ex-Mormon, and I'm also going to start talking about aromanticism. My plan is, because I don't trust YouTube, I'm going to start doing Twitch live streams and then take those streams and upload them to my YouTube channel. If YouTube will let me. I don't know if it will. But I haven't really had the ability to get everything up for Twitch, because it takes a little bit more than what it would for YouTube to get set up.
Oh my. Okay, now I cannot say this with absolute certainty, but I thought that Cirrus did more or less the same thing. Streamed on Twitch and uploaded it to YouTube.
Yeah, I have several friends who are doing that, but I don't know if it was, and like I said, the whole I think they're throttling people thing is actually just a theory. I don't have any proof. I don't know what happened. YouTube isn't going to tell me what happened.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If your channel doesn't have 500,000 subscribers, you will never get to talk to a human being.
Yeah, and I mean, and part of the reason why I haven't tried Twitch too is the setup, but the other part of that is that I have had so much trouble with social media and trying to talk about asexuality and trying to talk about LGBTQ plus things, and I've gotten stuff deleted from other social media because it violated standards, but it seemed to only be the asexual stuff that got deleted.
Okay, I want to ask you a couple of questions just to make sure that I'm clear and I understand. Are you asexual, one, and two? How do you define that? What does that mean?
For me, I am asexual, and for me, it means I don't feel sexual attraction. I also do not personally have much of a sex drive, but that can vary with aces. Basically, the feeling of I want to have sex with that person is almost non-existent for me. I feel the need for it maybe once every 7 years or so. Maybe.
So I take it that makes it very difficult in relationships with people that have a much higher sex drive.
I haven't done relationships in 15 years. It's not worth it most of the time.
Is that the reason? Is the sexual part
That's part of the reason. The other part of the reason is I also don't feel romantic attraction.
okay?
Which those two things are separate things. Even though I don't really feel romantic attraction a lot, I feel other forms of attraction. And that one is just too complicated to go in at like 3:00 in the morning my time.
Yeah.
I had a friend ask me what I thought romance was. He was like, as an aromantic, what is it? And I was just like, there are other people around us that are aromantic who it would have been much simpler to ask. Have fun. And I broke him for the night. He was just like, you know what? I love you. Thank you for your time. I'm done.
Okay, so getting back to the asexual thing, Orla said that YouTube does seem to have something about talking about LGBTQA plus GRSM, which I'm not familiar with that.
GRSM is gender romantic sexual
Minority.
Yeah, minority. Sorry.
Okay, Purple, since you jumped in on that, what the heck does that mean?
Well, basically, it's to change the focus. Instead of the LGBT, it's to try and change it from being just about sexual things to, getting society to understand that the gender and the romantic relationships aren't necessarily sexual, but it's that people have different attractions.
Coming from an ace who has heard the damn debate about whether or not aces are LGBTQ+. We are, by the way. So are aromantics. And if you don't like that, die mad. I don't have patience for you anymore. Die mad. And if you want to come at me with, well, you've never gone through anything, bitch, I got horror stories. So don't even. Sorry, I Twitter's been toxic as usual.
Twitter's a cesspool.
But GRSM was coined by people who were tired of certain groups being told that they didn't really belong because it was about the LGB and the T, which it is. It really and truly is. But there are some people that don't quite fit those categories
Mhm.
that really don't fit with people outside of that community either, that have more in common with the LGBTQ plus community than they have those that are not. And have gotten tired of all of the fighting. Also, there are so many different identities and so many different letters, and there's so many fights about which letters we should or should not include, because I don't expect everybody to be like LGBTQIAAP2S plus.
QRSTUVWXYZ.
Yeah. And I mean, and I'm not saying, and I personally just use LGBTQ plus because I know that I am under that umbrella. I know that I fit there. And I don't have to use my letter to say that. I'm underneath the plus. I'm good with the plus. But there are some who think that we should shorten it to the GRSM so that we can be inclusive of those identities without having to add a new letter every single time that we have somebody else come in, because there's non-binary people, there's the aromantics and the asexuals, there are the two-spirit, which definitely falls under that umbrella. And again, if anybody thinks that two-spirit doesn't, they can bite me.
Yeah,
I like
I'm
the
very
human label.
familiar with. I'm very familiar with the two-spirit. I mean, there's vodka and there's bourbon, and no, okay, no, I'll be over there.
Terrible joke. But, well, there are some people who are like, well, spirit doesn't count. And I'm like, how in the fuck does that not count? Like, are you fucking serious, you racist asshole?
I like the human label. That's the one I go for.
I do not use human because until people stop trying to shove pills down me to fix me, I'm going to fight you. And a lot of times the same people who will be like, and I'm not saying you are, but I've heard people who have said, well, I'm just human, and then spout off about all of the things that I'm missing, per se, that I should fix in order to fit into that category. And it's like, no.
No, that's a state of being.
But that's the thing, is I need words to express the stuff that I've gone through, the systematic things that I have gone through, the systematic things that my friends and loved ones have gone through, that we need changed. There is a pill out there, a female libido drug, that that a good portion of aces actually got asked for around Halloween time last year, and we feel like we were targeted. And I don't know if we were or not, but it was just like all of a sudden in all of my ace groups, people were like, why are we getting ads for drugs?
That could have
Okay,
just been the
So the presupposition here is that being asexual is somehow wrong.
Yes.
It's somehow a disorder.
Yes.
They're treating it as a mental disorder.
They've been treating it as a mental disorder up until the DSM-5, where if you identify as asexual, you will not be given, I think they call it FSED now, female sexual. It's for girls, it's FSED. For men, I don't remember what it is, but it's basically hyposexuality disorder renamed. And I've looked into hyposexuality disorder, and I've read a lot of the case studies for when it originally came out. And those case studies sound like one of three things a good portion of the time. Man and woman are married and hate the fuck out of each other and really should get a divorce.
So
Gay guy is married to a woman, and he shouldn't be in that relationship. He should be with somebody else, male, or asexual. I've read those case studies.
Okay, wait a minute. So what this was saying was that if a gay person was married to a straight person, that was a mental disorder.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the gay guy is
Alan
basically
Turek.
wearing a beard.
Let's take Alan Turek. That man was not insane at all.
No, he wasn't until they medicated him.
Well, yeah, until they destroyed
They
him.
they castrated him. They medicated him. And
Yeah,
asexuals, even in the LGBTQ plus community or the GRSM community, whichever one you prefer, I respect both terms. And I use them interchangeably because both have their uses, and I understand that we're never going to get everybody to agree on one thing. There's too many of us and we're all too different. But the LGBTQ plus community still doesn't recognize the fact that ACEs often get medicated still.
Okay.
Or that they get
ask
taken off of medications.
Forgive me for my ignorance, and I just want to ask, is it medically shown that in general that ace people have certain hormone levels or whatever that are lower, but not only that, does that affect them medically? Because I know people can have different testosterone, estrogen levels.
I know aces who have gone through every medical test known to man and everything came back normal.
Okay, so it's not a medical issue.
I refuse to do that myself, and not because I'm scared of what I would find out, but because I refuse to jump through any more hoops for anybody else. If I jump through those hoops, it'll be because I want to, and I don't want to.
Okay, if there was a person that was asexual just due to lack of sex drive, and they wanted to be, could those medications even help?
If those medications are crappy, and I say they're crappy for both aces and allos, which is what we call non-aces, that medication, you have to take it every single day. You take it before bed because it makes you so drowsy that if you are not in bed, you will collapse when it kicks in. You will pass out. You will go to sleep. And it only increases your sex drive 2 times a month.
Wow.
It is a shitty drug. I understand if you used to have a sex drive or you're in a relationship and it's causing you distress. I'm sorry. I understand that. But that drug is shitty. I'm sure that there will be improvements if they can find them, but ADI is not a good drug. It is not something that I think should be pushed at all.
Well, and that really should be the case with any drug. They should make you aware of the benefits and the potential problems, and it should be up to the person of whether or not they're going to take it.
You have to sign a waiver saying you're going to take it before bed and you won't drink alcohol, a certain amount of alcohol before it's time to take it.
Well, unfortunately, these days they're doing that with everything, but I know what you mean.
Okay, so
there's a waiver, but
I'm going to ask another stupid question. Again, medically, is there any correlation between emotions and sex drive? Like my son pretty much lacks emotions. I don't know if he's asexual or not. We
Hey, Art.
Get to that, but is there any correlation there?
Okay, you were cutting out, and then Art came in, and Purple said hi. So I'm going to get back to your question. And Doorknob Head, you are not the only person who's told me that. Kate has accused me of going through Pon Far before, and it's not even that intense. Like, for me, it's basically a blip. It's like, if it happens, cool. If it doesn't, Okay, what was your question?
Well, I think Orla answered it, but basically, I was asking if there's any known connection between emotions and sexuality, or sex drive, rather.
Yeah, there is, but the thing is that for aces, sex drive can be a completely separate thing. I have a friend who is ace, who is very hypersexual. She's basically ready to go at any moment as long as she has enough trust with that person. But the person doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a, hey, you're the one I want to do this with. It's more of a, you look good. Okay, let's go.
Yep.
And yes, emotions can change that, but this is how I have been my entire life. It hasn't really changed. When I was a teenager in high school, I wasn't interested in dating at all. Hell, I didn't become interested until I was told I had to be interested, and then that was by force. Half the time, at least half the time, I'm not interested in dating at all. And then the other half, when I am, I'm like, it's not worth, putting up with people who, because you never know when you tell somebody when you're ace or aro, you never know if you're going to tell somebody who's going to have a physically violent reaction to that. And I have had that happen to me on dates before.
Just because you're an ace.
Well, just because it's something that most people don't understand.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's crazy. How could you get angry about that?
Oh, there are people on Twitter who every 3 or 4 months or so add aces, well-known aces to their death threat chats.
You're joking.
Nope.
Insane.
We've had problems on Twitter for like ages. That's where my bite me attitude came from earlier in the stream.
Yeah, of course. I get it. Oh, I didn't see that, but yeah, I get that emotion. I mean, that's just crazy. Yeah. I don't understand it. I can't understand the anger towards that. I mean, what's the point? It's nature.
It's been so odd to me. And also in that same chat, they've also sent porn. Porn to people, including minors, which also pisses me off because it's like, no, you. And Twitter won't do anything about it. Now, I know Twitter's limited. I get that there's only so much they can do. But instead of like outright banning these accounts, they put them on suspension just so that they can come back. And I really think that they should outright ban the accounts because at least then some people might get turned off by, okay, well, I'm tired of having to create a new account every time I get thrown off. And it won't completely solve the problem, but it would at least do more than what they're doing.
Yeah, maybe slows it down a little bit or discourages.
Yeah.
Hey, Beth, you're saying, right, Diana? And I'm not sure I see what you mean when you say that. What are you referring to?
Wow, Sylvia's really crying.
Anna needs to feed a cat or something.
Okay, Sylvia is definitely not asexual.
Sylvia's hungry, I think.
No.
No.
Yeah, I know
else?
what kind of hungry she is.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. Can you guys hear me okay? Because
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Yeah, it's clear enough. No worries.
Yep. You're fine.
Because I'm not too experienced at this. I just thought I'd jump in and say hello for a change rather than just being in the chat.
Yeah, we always like to have some new people in here.
Yeah, great. That's good. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm waiting for my government stimulus check so I can go cross town to the vet and have her taken care of. Yeah. No, I don't know what I just said, so don't even ask.
It sounded as though you did. It was very convincing.
There we go.
Luckily, I am a interpreter of tongues, and Diana said my cat owns me.
Well, we all knew that
Sounds like it.
already. Yeah, you don't have the cat has you.
Well, that's what you get from interpreting tongues. Needless information that you already knew.
No, there
Yeah,
is.
I'm pretty sure that if I had grown up in a church that believed in such things, they would have interpreted some of my strings of vocal tics as speaking in tongues.
Oh, no doubt about it. Yeah.
Because
Oh, no.
yeah, well, sometimes when I get really stressed out, I have been known to go on for as long as 10 minutes, just spewing out random syllables that mean absolutely nothing.
Oh my! Now there is this other thing I do. With is the thing that for me is the for to doing to making is that I to that to doing to making, that sort of thing, and I've noticed that there almost seems to be a definite grammar involved. I have to write that down and see if there actually is a definite order. And
When I was 22, 23, my roommate was trying to compile it all because he was convinced it was an alien language.
yeah, if I do this right, then maybe I can write another unit for Duolingo, and they might pay me something. You never know.
Hey, Diana, when you ever get that fish tank running, you need to put a chest of gold with bubbles coming out of it, because Being Mindful just said that she loved it, and they're talking about how beautiful your fish and your fish tank are.
Okay.
And the fat.
The one thing I've had the thought of doing, number one, I'm not sure how to pull it off, and number two, I'm not sure how many people would hate me for doing it. They might take offense to it, but I wouldn't mind getting a small model of a space shuttle, smashing it with a hammer, and putting the pieces at the bottom of the tank.
Also, Doorknob
Yeah.
had that you have beautiful godfish
Okay,
because you can't see them.
smashing the whole shuttle and putting it in there might get to some people, but maybe you could get the model and just, put the expendable booster rockets down in the bottom.
Okay.
Like they jettisoned on takeoff.
There you go. Yeah. Because I know it would almost seem like spitting on the memories of the 7 who died.
Yeah, I think some people would take it insulting for that.
Yeah.
They should not have died, but that's another story entirely. That should never have flown.
Yeah, they ignored some warnings that they should have checked into things before the takeoff.
Well, that's the whole thing. Is that there was a whole expose, if you want to call it that, and the Thiokol person who blew the whistle, later wrote or reported or whatever it is, that when he was telling one of the DOD people this, the guy responded with, "Well, what do you want us to do? Launch in April?" So that was the attitude there. The launch was more important than anybody aboard.
Yes, yeah, so they rushed it
there
up.
was
They
too much
hurried
political pressure to keep it on schedule.
Mm-hmm. And it's not that there were not problems of that type, and it's not that those problems were not known. It was known that there were O-ring problems, but they just kept flying. So what are you gonna, I don't know.
That push to further the space program, I think, ended it.
Yeah. Well, and that was probably the thing. They were probably feeling the pressure and thinking that their funding was going to get cut if they let things fall behind schedule.
Oh, I'm pretty sure of it. Yeah. And at least I'm going to say a nasty word, but at least the man side of the program has suffered.
Mhm.
And well, of course, the unmanned side has been taken down with it as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, certainly that was demonstrated by us, having to rely on the Soviets to taxi our guys up to the space station.
Yeah, at what is it? I think $20 million a crack. 20 million a
Yeah.
seat. Something like that.
Well, but not just the money, just
Well, yeah, I mean, we have
the
to
prestige,
rely on,
the social embarrassment of having to ask the Russians for help.
well, not only that, we can't piss them off for fear that they will say, okay, no more taxi rides.
Yep.
Chat wants clarification on which launch everyone's talking about.
Okay, what I was talking about right there was STS-51L, the one everyone calls Challenger, because that's the name of the shuttle. And then there was also Columbia, which was in 2003, which really brought the program to a screaming halt when Columbia burned up on reentry.
So Challenger was the one in the 80s. Is that right?
Challenger.
Yeah,
was in 1982, wasn't it? That
I remember that. Yeah, because it had the lady on there.
Say again, hon?
It had the lady on there.
Yeah,
there was a woman on board. Yeah. And I don't know if she was an astronaut or what, or was she?
No, she was a school teacher.
School teacher, that's right. Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah, and when that blew up, there had been plans to fly a senator and a couple other people. Those plans went right down the WC. He said, no, we're not going to risk any of that anymore. So, it's just the way that went.
Yeah, well, a crash like that'll do it, won't it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. Make me feel old, Beth. Go right ahead. Just, make me feel old. I mean, I was married 5 years when that happened.
Yeah, it's Amiga Nut's got her name there.
Yes, that's the
What's really interesting, and it's kind of morbid, is one of the schools here, and I don't know if they still do because it took quite a bit of funding to keep going. I believe it was Douglas Anderson, their middle school. They used to have a Challenger experience where students would take field trips and be put aboard a version of the Challenger. And you would actually go through the whole thing up into including the explosion.
Holy fucking shit! Whose brilliant idea was that?
That sounds pretty messed up.
The reason why people have WTF bumper stickers on the back of their cars, welcome to Florida.
I wasn't aware of that one.
Yes, we're actually going to get one for our vehicle because it's even more than usual down here.
You'll need to get a picture of that on your car. Make sure you don't show the license plate, but take a picture and post that to Twitter.
Yeah, we're gonna get a couple like that because it's been wild down here.
Yeah, I have a cousin living down in Florida, and just,
honey,
she keeps telling me about how great it is down there, and I should move down there. I'm like, nope.
No. Floridians are bonkers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My apologies, Tria, but
well, and
I
just
roll with it at this point.
Just the wildlife. I mean, even living in northern Michigan, the only thing I was worried about were black bears. We did not have anything cold-blooded that was trying to eat people.
Oh, have y'all seen the pictures of the gators that I have been putting on my Twitter?
Yeah, I've seen a few of those.
They don't all get that size, but some of them do here.
Yeah, I remember a couple of years ago, though, there was one that size that took up residency in the water hole on a golf course.
Oh, yay.
So, yeah, he was tending to jump up out of the water when people hit their balls too close.
That's what I would call a water hazard.
Yeah.
We have crocodiles in Australia. It's not alligators.
Well, I've also heard that there's a golf course in Australia that because there had been some flooding, there is now a family of bull sharks trapped in one of their ponds.
Oh, that would freak me out. Gators I can handle, sharks, no.
No, I don't like sharks.
Yeah,
I haven't heard of that one, Purple, but yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah, look it up. I saw a little piece on it about a year ago that there's apparently like 5 or 6 bull sharks living in the pond on the golf course.
Okay.
Now, wait a minute, though. Are the bull sharks particularly aggressive, or what's going on?
No, bull sharks are not, but I don't like sharks, period. In fact, I have a friend who teases me about my irrational fear of sharks. Because of my fear of sharks, I will not go in the ocean. I will not go on the ocean.
Yeah,
but the can stay far, far away from me. But he says,
the interesting thing, though, is it is showing in a level of adaptation that they weren't aware was possible, that these sharks have adapted to living in a freshwater lake.
Evolution, almost.
Well, this is interesting here. When I was looking up bull shark on the Google, I'm pretty sure I saw something come up that, yes, one of the search results that comes up as you start typing is bull shark in Lake Erie. Now, I want to see what this points to.
Oh, really? I wasn't aware there were any in the Great Lakes.
Okay, here's a headline, 23 July 2015. Great whites in the Great Lakes, ? Bull shark, ! What do we have? We have let's be realistic here. The only sharks in the Great Lakes region can be found behind glass in an aquarium, right? But between Megalodon specials on Discovery Channel's Shark Week earlier this month, one title caught my eye, Monster Quest Jaws in Illinois. Now, Chicago is home to a lovely aquarium, but the shed was definitely not the topic of the rerun. Rather, it told detailed sharks swimming up the Mississippi River as far as Illinois. Oh, for the love of St. Gulick. Oh, my. I didn't know they could pull that one off.
So the Mississippi, is that salt water?
Oh, that's a river. That's freshwater.
That's a river. That's what I mean. So how far could a shark get up there? Because, I mean, they're saltwater creatures.
Well, they're saying in this article, allegedly, they've been known to swim as far as Illinois, which is near the headwaters.
Yeah, so that would have been them, swimming north up a freshwater river for close to 1,000 miles. Away from empties into the ocean.
I guess it's possible they could get a certain distance, but I feel as though it would become a problem for them being freshwater as opposed to salt.
Well, yeah, and that's why I was saying about the ones living in the lake, that it's surprised the researchers that they're apparently, the bull sharks are able to adapt, and they're not having trouble breathing in freshwater.
Yeah. Well, that's
because normally if you put a saltwater animal into a freshwater environment, they have problems just with the gills not being able to draw enough oxygen out of the water.
Right, and by the way, this is why salmon die. I remember someone wrote a paper years and years ago, where they concluded that salmon died because they spawned, but forgot to note that they were hatched in fresh water but spawned in a marine environment, in salt water. And it was that I'm sorry, they hatched in fresh water, went to live in salt water, then came back to fresh water to spawn. And it was that change in environment.
Oh, I never thought about that, but that makes perfect sense. That
Yeah, they'd become
if they
accustomed,
mature in the ocean, then when
Mhm.
they return to freshwater, they're again having the breathing problem.
Yeah, and instead of sex killing salmon, it was that switch to fresh water again. Interesting bullshit you learn in an animal physiology course at university. Oh my!
Yeah, if I understand, it's the equivalent of an electrolyte imbalance if you try to put a saltwater fish in freshwater and vice versa.
Yeah.
They're physiologically they can't handle it.
Mhm.
Yeah, well,
Or-
it's one
or
of the
the chemical
problems with
thing.
the whole worldwide flood thing, that if you're going to dump another ocean's worth of freshwater into the saltwater environment, then no animal, freshwater or saltwater, is going to be able to survive that.
Oh, wait! I
Right.
got the answer to that. I got the answer to that. You're completely wrong. You're just a hateful atheist. It's God magic.
Mhm. Yep.
Magic first.
Yeah, that's reasonable. That's very reasonable.
Yeah, somebody brought up recently one of the best arguments against the ark that I've ever seen. How did the sloths manage to get to the Middle East in time, considering they're only awake about 4 hours a day and they have a maximum speed of less than 6 miles an hour?
Yeah, there you go. Let's see. The sloths are mostly where, in South America?
Yeah. So yeah, that's how long would it take them to get from South America to the Middle East?
And they'd have to be pretty damn good at swimming too, by the way. Mm-hmm.
Actually, they are.
Lemuria isn't going to work for this one.
Actually, they are, and there actually was a period of time that there were several species of aquatic sloths that they had basically taken over that niche before seals evolved.
Okay, then.
But then
You know,
apparently they weren't able to compete well with the seals and whales.
A lot of apologists have it, of course, a fine-tuning argument, but what I'm finding a lot, I invert a lot of arguments, but considering our laws of physics and considering what we see in the animal kingdom, for example, a wing does not always evolve the same way, but they produce the same effects. The same thing with the swimming abilities and so forth. And when you start to look at like aquatic animals, you see that they all begin to kind of look pretty similar, in the same way that like winged creatures kind of look similar. And I think it's because of the confines of laws of physics that in order for us to have life as we see it, it kind of has to be the way it is. There's no other way for it to happen.
Well, yeah, that's why you have the convergent evolution, because animals with completely different ancestry adapting to a similar environment will tend to take on similar characteristics.
Mm-hmm. But I think they've got the argument completely backwards, and they just don't understand it at all.
Yeah, well, that's why dolphins and sharks look pretty much the same.
Oh, they're the same thing. They're in the what is it, the fish group? In the Bible, you have the fish group. You have the fish group, the flying group, and then the walking group. That's all the animal. That's the taxonomical classification. I don't know why R and Raw can't figure that crap out. He seems like
Oh, good. Yeah, you talk about Aaron. I love the way he blew up at Eric Hovind the one day, where it was the standard humans are apes argument going on, and Hovind looked around toward Aaron's arse, with a look on his face like, and our apes don't have tails. Learn taxonomy. He's a big sweetie. I love him dearly.
He's great to listen to. I love listening to Aaron Ra. Or Aaron,
yeah.
as he prefers.
Mm-hmm.
He says it should be pronounced RN.
Yeah.
Same as the
RN.
nurse.
Yeah, he's got a couple of great video series that are I think unmatched in the what is it, the taxonomical classification of life? What's
Oh yes, the
Yeah,
systematic classification of life. He just wrapped that one up. If you haven't seen any of it, you have got to see it from start to finish.
Yeah.
It is beautiful.
It's more than 50 episodes, but yeah, he just got to where humans fit into it at the end here.
it's actually amazing because the arguments it isn't even arguments. He just presents the facts, and when he does, it is inarguable you fit into those classifications.
Mm-hmm.
And so he literally starts from pretty much RNA and DNA and works all the way up to human beings and shows why we are what we are.
Yep.
And then, of course, there's S.J. Thomason with, well, of course, that's only biology, and humans are beyond biology. They may fit all the category classifications, but they're not animal. And it's like, fuck you, Stephanie.
I think it was Kent Hovind. I think it was Kent Hovind that literally said that animals not only don't they feel emotions, but they don't even feel pain. That's how far out there he is.
Oh man, I can provide him ample evidence to contradict both of those claims.
I was about to say, because my cat has shown obvious signs of pain several times since I've gotten the little guy. Granted, then thank goodness it's not been any time recently. But his IBD was tearing him apart and nearly killed him. I am sure that was painful.
I've heard other people making that claim that animals can't feel pain, and it's like, no, you've just never paid attention to them.
No.
And then a whole bit about animals not showing emotion. Okay, let me shut up, Clarion. Let's get this right. This whole thing about non-human animals not showing emotion. Take a little while to look at the puppy or the kitty that you have with you. This one over here is as demanding of affection as any 3-year-old human I've ever known.
Mine, and also mine will cause a hissy fit if I don't have at least one meal a day with him.
Okay.
And it's usually around supper time. Usually it's the supper time one. Occasionally it's my midnight snack. But he will tell me that he's hungry. And he does that by sitting next to his bowl. So I'll go and grab him food. And then I'll put food in his bowl. And then he'll look at it. And I can tell when he's not wanting to eat the food and because he's feeling sick. And when he's just being an ass at this point. And he will sit there by his food bowl and cry at me, and I'm like, you have food in your bowl, and this is obviously the food you want. What is your problem? And then I will go and grab my dinner and sit down, and then he'll look at me, give me a quick purr and a meow, and then start eating.
Yeah, well, and when I was living in New York, I redomesticated 3 cats from the feral colony in the park.
Okay.
And one of them in particular, Fiona, I can tell you the exact day that it stopped being about food and it was more about being that she wanted to sleep next to me.
Okay then.
Yeah. And mine gets super excited when it's bedtime because he likes to snuggle. In fact, he will choose snuggling over food a good portion of the time, which is not does not make it easy to wake up in the mornings because when I finally start to wake up, he'll come over, flop on my arm and purr, and then fall back asleep on top of my arm, and I'm like, "Are you hungry?" And he's like, "Sleepy. Good night."
Yeah,
And
that's
we'll do 3 or 4 rounds of that, and then I'll finally get up, and he will complain that I'm getting out of bed, even though 5 minutes later, once I'm actually out of bed, he's going to be complaining about not having food.
Yeah, this one over here, and I am so brokenhearted that I really can't have her in the bedroom right now. I've got to secure some stuff back there so she doesn't destroy it. Then I can have her in the bed and she'll sleep with me again. But she'll get in the crook of my knee, and I'll find myself waking up, and here's this cat in the crook of my knee. And if I move at all, even if I try to pick the leg up and over and everything, I wake her up, and she gets rather pissed off at me for it. So it's like, okay, I've got to lie here for a while until she decides to wake up. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and Orla makes a good point here about the argument people made that babies couldn't feel pain. And that was a big part of the thing about them doing the circumcision at 8 days.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
because they were convinced that a baby that small didn't actually feel the pain, so cutting off the tip wasn't hurting them.
Yeah, the crying meant nothing. Yeah,
Yeah.
A lot of times I hear these claims that people thought this or thought that and so forth. In the Bible, it said that people thought that a man's seed was like a seed and that it was planted in the womb like soil, and it had all the genetic information. I haven't really written about this yet or addressed it, but we have things like mastiffs and Great Danes and dairy goats and sheep and so forth. Those little farmers had to have known that the female contributed DNA, or we would not have these breeds. They could not have made a breed without knowing this stuff. And so I think what's going on is there are the scholarly schools, say in Greece and so forth. That's where we usually think of the beginning of studies at a professional level. So you had these rich people that didn't have contact with animals because they weren't goat herders or whatever. They lived in the city. They were rich, well-to-do, and they started doing all this philosophy, and they came to the conclusion that it was a seed, a man's seed planted in a womb. But we don't get the writings from the farmers and so forth, because why would you write about something that was obvious? And a lot of the farmers and goat herders, of course, weren't educated anyway. And even if they were writing something to say, yes, the female goat or cow, whatever, does contribute to the species and what it looks like and how it comes out, there would be no reason to write that. It would be obvious. Kind of like, yeah, you should feed a baby, So I think we get a lot of misinformation from the scholars of the time, or the old scholars of the time that we look back in history.
Yeah, that's a good point, that you're getting a very specific subset of the society, not really a cross section of everyone all the time.
Oh, and I've got some news. Matt Powell contacted me and wanted to do a live stream, with me, which we've been talking about for 2 years, and I've tried to set it up with him for 3 times, and he's backed out at the last minute all 3 times. So anyway, I responded, and he asked me to email him, and I said sure I would. And then I get this message from him: hey, the camera crew is really good, and we'll give you all the footage. And I was like, oh, hell no. I didn't even respond after that. If he's planning on meeting me somewhere and having a camera crew, no way am I going to do it, because I know what he's going to do with it. And that's what he did to the amazing.
Yeah, to Nakasuchi.
Yeah. So there's no, I was just wanting to do a live stream with him that I controlled from my end, or a third party, but no, I'm not going to.
Well, we can't have that. I mean, how are they supposed to be able to control the narrative if they hand that possibility over to you?
Yep.
Well,
it can be edited any way that they want it.
Yeah.
Everyone knows
Yeah.
what he did to the amazing atheist, and I'm not going to get myself in that situation. If he wants to do a live stream where I have a little bit of control of the conversation and so forth, because I know exactly what he's going to do.
No, wait a minute here.
He's going to say, well, you believe that something came from nothing. And I'm going to say, no, I don't. I don't know where we came from. And what he's going to do is cut out everything that I've said, and he's just going to say, no, I don't know, and try to make me look stupid.
Yeah.
I wasn't listening all that closely at first, but you've got to be talking about Ray.
No, Matt Powell.
Say again?
Matt Powell.
Matt Powell.
Oh, that piece of shit. Oh, okay. Because yeah, what you were describing sounded a lot like Ray Comfort.
Well,
Yeah.
he's in Ray Comfort's school. I think he knows Ray Comfort. I think he knows Greg Hovind and has chummed around with those folks. But he's definitely from the Camp Hovind camp.
Yeah.
I'll go Bastu.
Yeah, and you really can't get any of them to, even do something on a neutral third channel.
Well,
If they can't control things, they don't want to be part of it.
I don't even want to talk about the quote debate issues with Matt Powell. I want to know what his background is and why he believes what he does believe. And I know it's because God's real. No.
They never, ever come up with any answers, ever. They talk around in circles. You won't get an answer. You can try as hard as you want, and they're just going to talk around in circles.
Right. And but at least I would have some ability to have a decent conversation with him on a live stream. But if he has a film crew, no matter what, it's going to be bad.
Yeah,
He's
that's
just gonna
very,
chop it
very
up
risky.
however he wishes. And I the reason I stream and so forth is about honesty.
Yeah, there are some people you're not going to get any of that from, no matter what.
That's right.
SJ comes to mind.
Oh Lord, she
I
has
am glad that woman does not know I exist.
she has more than once invited me on her channel, and I will not have
Yeah.
it because I know it amazed the shit out of me when Kate went on her channel and it didn't go down to WC. Because she's famous for dragging conversations down the toilet. But when Kate was on there, it went fairly well. I don't know if she was trying to set her up for later, or certainly she hadn't had a change of heart.
No, she hasn't. I've seen some of her recent crap.
I think Shannon Q is pretty amazing at doing interviews with people that are out there.
Yeah, I want to talk about out there. You want to talk about Gary, fucking G-Man. He's Kate was on SJ's channel twice. The first time was when Gary was also on. And that one went right down the shitter. Yeah, Gary was being Gary, and no coherent anything out of him.
Now, did you go to the protest, Purple? The Ark Encounter thing?
I went to that last year.
Yeah, Purple carted me down
All right.
there.
Yeah, I
I've seen
picked up
something-
Diana and we drove down for that.
All right. No, I saw something on. It was probably just a photograph from when you went to it. You put something up on Twitter that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, it was an old photograph.
Nerdy was asking for face pics, so yeah, that was
That's
a
right.
picture from from just when I started that trip last year, with me and the mask and the sloth girl plushie.
Yeah, and Aaron Ra spoke at that one, didn't he?
Yeah, I got to meet Aaron Ra when we were there,
Okay.
and Diane and I got invited to somebody's house party, and we were hanging out on their patio with Aaron Ra.
Nice.
And Aaron is a big sweetie.
Yeah, so I actually got to have a couple of drinks with him.
Yeah.
That's good.
You would have had a nice conversation with him. Very interesting chat.
Oh yeah, he's just and he's just amazing the way he is, just so personal. It's like everybody is his best friend.
And the amazing thing is, he amazed the crap out of me because we're sitting at the table on Hilton's deck. He's asking me about trans-related things, and I'm sitting there with Aaron is asking me for what the hell am I to be? But it's
You live it. You live that experience, though.
Yeah, exactly
and
right.
that's the thing, that
exactly.
he doesn't have a problem acknowledging that you have an experience he didn't have, so you are more knowledgeable on that subject.
Yeah,
if you live it and you have that experience, you're going to be the expert on that topic.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's not exactly the way it sounds when I say it, but it's almost like God asking me questions, you know?
I know what you mean.
Oh yeah, we know what you mean. It's that feeling. Why are you asking me? It's just anybody worth their salt knows that if they're going to discuss something seriously, that they either need to pass the mic over or they need to do some serious research and talk to people from that particular group.
Yeah.
And that's a huge credit to Aaron Ra. So here he is at a party after an event or whatever, just hanging out, and he can't stop himself from trying to learn.
Yeah.
And he sees Diana and knows Diana, and he's like, you know what? I can learn some things right here and now. That's amazing.
Yeah, well, and that really is what drives him, that he always wants to learn something new at every opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm really interested. He's leaking bits and pieces and short videos about the paleontology dig he went on.
Yeah,
I saw he just put up like another 10-minute video on that today that I haven't got to watch yet.
That's the one I haven't watched yet. I haven't watched, what is it, Four Wheeling for Fossils, as the title of the one he put up. I saw it come up on my feed. I haven't watched it yet, and I need to do that.
So in my last video, to change the subject, I introduced what I call the test of a false god, which is how I came to the conclusion that God did not exist as a Christian. And I put this on some Christian chat rooms, and I kept on having to reply, okay, I realize I'm wrong and all this stuff, but please find a hole in my argument. And I never could. And basically it was this. We all know that you cannot prove or disprove a god because of the definitions and so forth. And many gods are gods that are incomprehensible and so forth, blah, blah, blah. So what I decided to do was, okay, what is a god that does not exist? What are the attributes that God has? Or what can't it do? And I mean, a God that doesn't exist can't do miracles. Prayers don't work. And most of all, you have to have faith to believe in a God that does not exist.
Sounds like pretty much every god I've ever heard of.
So then I compared that to my God. Well, miracles were said to happen, but that was, personal experience, so forth. It couldn't be confirmed. Prayer could not be confirmed to work. And guess what? The one requirement for my God was that I have faith. So
Mhm.
then I realized that my God had nothing, it was no better than a God that didn't exist. There was no, the comparison was exactly the same.
Yeah.
From a God that did not exist. And then so, a lot of people, when they say, okay, I'm dumping Christianity or whatever, or I don't believe in the Christian God, they have this desire to go and look at other religions. Well, because I came to that conclusion in that way, I realized that there were no gods that did not require faith. So there was no reason for me to investigate any other God, because it was no more valid than any other God that didn't exist.
See, it's good that you could be honest with yourself like that, because I think if any religious person seriously questions themselves and is honest with everything, they're going to come to that kind of conclusion that it's just not real. If they're honest, I think there's a certain amount of lying that they do to themselves.
Well, you're taught.
And yeah,
You're taught to. Because
yeah,
if you question God,
indoctrination.
you're wrong. So therefore, I cannot question God. So I don't question God. So I'm not a sinner, and I don't go to hell. It's built into the system. It's built into the brainwashing.
Yeah,
Just like you have to have faith. The one requirement of a Christian religion is you have faith. Well, once again, any
Yeah.
God that doesn't exist has to have that. It's a requirement of believing in.
You're
a God
not
that doesn't
supposed to
exist.
question. That goes against the faith. Questioning goes against the faith. So
this is the
you're not
question
allowed
I
to.
would like to ask, or talk to people like Matt Powell, because they're totally used to the argument of, well, you can or cannot prove a God exists, and I know that's the direction they would want to go, and I would have to keep them going back, just like I did on Facebook and so forth, and the different groups there. Bring them back to the point. Okay, so how is any God any more valid than any other God that does not exist?
Mhm.
And I think that is an approach that I have not yet seen. And I've been in the community a little while now. But I think that's a key approach to take. Once again, with like apologetics, I don't need to address apologetics. It can be any argument that you want to throw at me, the Kalam cosmological argument. My answer is going to be, if you're having to make a reasoned defense of God, then that God is not worth defending. If apologetics exists, if you have to explain to me what God says, then that God is not concerned enough to make it obvious to everyone. So therefore, there's no reason for me to listen to any apologetics. And the fact that apologetics exists actually undermines the God itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, an all-powerful God doesn't need protecting.
Right. The root word of apologetics is apologia, which is Greek for reason defense. And so it's not apologizing for, as we use it in the colloquial sense. It's giving a defense of the position of God. But once again, if you have to do that, then your God is not worth paying attention to. It's not a God. If it doesn't do God stuff, it's not a God.
Yeah. Well, anything that is powerful enough to actually be a God should not have a problem being able to deliver a message that people who read or speak any language could understand.
Technically, if there was an all-powerful God, which we know can't exist, but that's another story, then even a deaf person that had never heard language, God could implant the thoughts and make them understand everything completely.
Yeah, exactly.
Or even a comatose person.
Hmm.
They're all powerful, right?
Yeah, it fails on so many levels. It fails on so many levels. Religion, like, it's quite laughable when you make points like that. I mean, yeah, he's omniscient, he's omnipresent, he's all of these things, omnipowerful. Yeah. Why can't he just get into people's heads and make them realize?
Yeah, well, see,
I'm real. I'm a true thing.
That's the problem anybody who follows the Bible runs into. That they've made him too powerful to the point that it's self-contradictory.
Yeah.
And that's why if I had to believe in something, one of the polytheist lines would make more sense to me, because the universe would make a lot more sense if there wasn't one being in control of it, but if there are maybe a dozen beings who are squabbling over who's in control, and that's why everything gets screwed up.
Yeah. That's true.
Okay, I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take that clip and say that you're a believer, just like they did at Hawkins.
Hey, Dave. Dave
Oh,
actually made it before I said I was going to close down the stream.
hey, hey.
Whoa. It's like the apocalypse. Oh, wait, we have a lot of those.
Is Dave doing questions tonight, I wonder?
Well, see, when dealing with the Bible, I'm not even going to get into the does God exist. I'm going to skip right past that. And, if I'll grant you that he exists and he's exactly as described in the Bible, you've still got a metric ton of work ahead to convince me that there's any reason he's worth worshiping.
The problem I have with theists in general, or Christians, I'll say Christians in general, is my argument is the God of the Bible is simply not plausible. It's not possible for that God to exist. And they don't understand that. But the God cannot be all-powerful. It cannot simultaneously be all-powerful and all-loving or omnibenevolent. It can't if they're suffering. So
it becomes self-contradictory.
Also, I just want to bring something up. The way I was raised, I don't have to actually try to interact with your God because you're all wrong. There is no hell. You only go to hell if you're a very, 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 very bad ex-Mormon, and everybody all gets to go to a kingdom of heaven. So all of the other apologetics are wrong. Go look at the Mormon ones, and also laugh at the tapers or horses things. Go laugh at those because that's hilarious.
I would actually be Mormon, but the problem is by the dictates of the religion, I can't own my own planet because I wasn't born into it, and I want to own my own planet. So
no, that's not how that works. That is not how that work.
Okay, then explain it, Jenny.
And also don't become Mormon. I'm just saying. I'm cracking a joke because, like, I listen to these conversations and I don't feel alienated so much as they don't feel. They feel odd to me because of how far out there my upbringing was.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. Like, I'm not alienated. I don't feel left out.
Actually, to be honest, the idea of each man getting his own planet makes a lot more sense to me than the Christian version of heaven that most of them preach.
I want a planet. I want a planet.
Okay, Diana, you're out. Each man gets a planet. Girls are out.
Yes. Well, they are.
I feel discrimination.
Planets for everybody.
Yeah, no, that's not how that works either. So in the Mormon church, there's a lot of elitism and there's levels. There's a reason why Mormons like multi-level marketing schemes and pyramid schemes, because the way their church operates a lot like a business and also operates kind of like a multi-level marketing scheme, socially speaking, not financially speaking, but socially speaking. And the reason
there is financial reward from it as well, is that right? There would be. There would be money involved.
No,
not so much as other religions.
No, see, here's the thing: all the money goes up to the top.
Yeah.
None of that stays with you. It all goes to the top.
Right.
In a multi-level marketing scheme, you keep some of the money. You don't keep a lot, but you keep some of it.
Yeah.
In the Mormon church, all the money goes back to the top, and then they send you back a pittance of what you sent goes to Salt Lake City, and then Salt Lake City sends you back a pittance of what you sent them, which is not how an MLM works. However, socially speaking, there are rungs that you can work your way up to. And most people are on the bottom rung and will be on the bottom rung their entire lives. Now, the way Mormon heaven works is you have the top kingdom called the Celestial Kingdom. And within the Celestial Kingdom, you have 3 smaller kingdoms. And the one at the highest are the only people who become like God. And the planet thing is actually a misnomer. If you look at deep Mormon mythology, it is mythology, it has as much lore as myths do. But if you look at it, it doesn't say you get your own planet. It says you live on a planet with God and can get all of his powers. So if God created the universe and you become exactly like God, what does that mean?
Okay, yeah, you should be able to create your own universe.
You should
then.
be able to create an entire universe. Because God in the scriptures, even the crazy wacky Mormon ones, it says that God created the universe. It didn't say he created Earth, it said he created the universe. So you should be able to create an entire universe.
So,
however, to get to that point, you have to follow all the Mormon rules, which there are many. It's easier to list off what you can't do than what you can do.
this goes back to a lot of the Gnostic beliefs, and even mainstream Christians, Orthodox Christianity has no clue. And I haven't even talked to a preacher yet that had any clue how involved or how Gnostic Christianity is, how much of those beliefs have gotten in there. There's one quote that says we can all become gods or something like that in the Bible, which is where the Mormons get that from. But the Gnostics, they believe by knowing oneself in general, and I'm being extremely generalized here, as generalized as you can possibly be. But a lot of the Gnostics believe that by knowing or understanding that you were a god, it would come to fruition. You would become a god. And it goes back to a lot of the mystery religions and so forth, which Christianity straight up is a mystery religion, no matter what the theists tell you or the Christians tell you. It is straight up a mystery religion historically. And it is also has a lot of Gnostic beliefs, but the Christians will deny that completely. But it is very, very clear.
But yeah, it's, and then the next kingdom down is basically people who were not Mormon. And there's a little bit of leeway between the two of them, and I don't want to go too deep into it.
So it allows people from other religions to get into heaven, but it's a different level.
Yeah, it's a different level, and you don't get as many rewards. The only people that go to the Mormon version of hell, which is called outer darkness, and it's nothing like what hell is described as by most mainstream Christian religions. It's basically you're tormented, but you're not tormented in the same way that's kind of you see the normal depictions. It's more you don't
with fire and agony and
no, it's not fire and
absolute
agony.
horror.
You are separated from the light. You are separated, which is why it's called outer darkness. You are separated from God and his light and his love, and there's nothing. And so you are basically thrown into a nothingness. And
kind of a limbo.
Pain. And it causes you pain because it's basically, oh shit, I realized that I have been completely separated from God. Because being separated from a loving parent is painful, and that's where they come from. Now they call him Heavenly Father and they say he's loving, but just like the rest of Christianity, what people say is a loving father isn't actually loving by any healthy definition of the word. And it's the same with Mormonism. That's something that's not different, but it's depending on who you ask will tell you one of two things. Old school people will tell you that the only people who go to the Mormon version of hell are the people who actually saw God in a vision and denied God and the Holy Ghost after having seen him, which is basically all of Joseph's friends who turned on him when they realized how much of a con he was running. Because they had all had visions with him and realized how terrible he was and started turning away from him. So it was like, everybody gets to go to heaven except for these jokers over here who used to be my friends.
I got a quick
Not con anymore.
quick question for you. I wonder if people who have a propensity to be hyper religious would be more likely to be attracted to churches like the Jehovah's Witnesses or the Mormons, because as you're telling me all this stuff, it is so complicated. There's so much stuff to learn. It's not coming from the Bible. And most Christians that I know are, I put them in different categories, but it's a good idea to be a Christian. And so therefore I'm a Christian. Other than that, don't bother me with it too much. And so doctrinally, you can go to, say, a Baptist church or whatever and learn you got to accept Jesus as your savior. Boom, you're done, and you can go have fun.
Yeah.
So my question is that, do you think that's possibly true, that the people who are not born Mormons, the people that are attracted towards that religion that want to become a part, would it be fair to say that they tend to be more hyper religious, or at least more concerned about doing what the church says than other Christianities?
I can't really say that because most of the people that I know that converted, and I'm speaking as somebody who did not convert. I was born and raised into it. I was very, very into it as a kid.
Mhm.
But I think most of it is Mormons are very, very good at knowing how to push your buttons and manipulate you into something. And I think it's less, I need more structure or I need to be more religious, and more of people are taught in the church to like notice when somebody is struggling or needs help or is lonely, and
So
to
they can
hone in
swoop on
that
them and drag them in.
and drag them in. And and Mormons, most people who are Mormon don't realize that they're doing this, and it's very, very hard to get them to see because they think that it's a loving gesture.
Yeah,
They're
they think they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, they're programmed from birth to be extremely empathetic, and which empathy is a good thing, but they play on the empathy from church members to go out and try to get more people. And most of the converts that I've heard have said, well, I lost my family, or I was homeless, or I was struggling and needed food, or, I just felt something was missing in my life. And that's where a lot of converts come from, is that feeling
Down and out people.
down and out people. Something's missing. I'm looking for something to make me happy, or I'm looking for something to fill that void. And that's usually what pulls converts in. Now, that being said, with the internet, the Mormon Church has had trouble pulling converts in the United States and in several parts of Europe. Unfortunately, this means that any growth that they're having right now is in places like South America, Africa, and different places, and they are draining these people dry. They are the prophets are hopping in airplanes and going down and guilting people down there for their money because they're not getting it from people here in the States hardly anymore.
The internet
Ruthless.
is going to kill God.
Yeah, you got kind of staticky there. We missed that one.
I was just saying the internet is definitely going to kill God.
Oh, yeah.
But it's going to take a while. So while I understand I understand people with the goal of taking down Christianity. I get it, but I'm kind of one of the in the meantime, what do we do about the other stuff kind of thing. I tend to think more because I think Christianity is going to, at the very least, not be as influential at some point in the future. I don't know that it will ever die off completely, but I do think that there's going to come a point where it's not influential anymore. But I also don't think that that's until a long, long way down the road.
Well, it's not
yeah.
such a big deal if it's a personal thing, you know? But
yeah, and that too is like, if it's personal to you and you're not using it to discriminate against somebody else or cause harm to yourself or others, I personally have no issue with that. And it's also partially because who the hell am I to tell you what you should and shouldn't think unless it's causing harm to somebody else or yourself?
Yeah.
Like,
I get hounded with
like
this question constantly, particularly on agnostic.com. Well, you're an atheist. Why do you care about people that believe they can believe whatever they want and it doesn't harm anyone? And then Then I start to list beheadings and so forth and all of the things that religion does because one doesn't believe. And when it comes to violating a human being's rights to live and to be free, yeah, I have a huge problem, particularly anytime that anyone believes something that is not real and makes life decisions based upon that affects my life or others. I'm very concerned.
Yeah, and for me, that's how, and the thing is that I get shocked looks from people who I still discuss things with. I'm fairly upfront about how I feel about Mormonism. I'm surprised some Mormons are still friends with me somehow, like actual genuine friends. I don't think they're around to try to convert me. Because at the end of the day, we kind of have the same goals, sort of, to a degree. I want the Mormon church to go down and be destroyed. They just want the Mormon church to stop discriminating and actually spend some of the money that they have on helping people. So, long-term goal is hopefully someday it goes down and dies because it needs to. Short-term goals are getting rid of the discrimination and getting their money out of politics and trying to force their hand into actually spending money on the poor and the sick and the needy like they're supposed to. Because the reason they're tax exempt is they're a church and they're supposed to be doing those things, but because we don't enforce those laws here in the United States.
What's killing me here recently is church is somehow getting stimulus stuff.
Oh, the Mormon church got a stimulus. And you want to know how bullshitty that is? The Mormon church is worth at least $300 billion. Billion with a B. Not an M, a B. And they should not have gotten any of that money whatsoever. And they bragged a little while ago about giving $5 million away to people who needed food. And I get tired of arguing with Mormons because they're like, look, we gave $5 million. And I was like, yeah, and you're hoarding so much more. Didn't your God tell you in the Bible somewhere? Because I know you believe in the Bible. You don't, to a certain degree, isn't one of the big lessons that we're always taught in church the widow's mite, where the widow
They're so blatantly hypocritical. They are so blatantly hypocritical, and they don't see it. It's like, it's crazy. Are you looking at yourself to see what you do? Wasn't Jesus all about the poor and the meek?
Yeah, I mean, and there's contradictions, and there's some things that Jesus said that were that by our standards now are kind of like, whoa, that's shitty. But
well, there's one passage that says you can't go to heaven if you're not destitute. Put on the lips of Jesus, and we see how seriously that's been taken.
Oh yeah, like,
Yeah,
and the Mormon church isn't the only church that does this. It's just this one feels personal because
that's your experience.
That's my experience, and I have family members who are still passing off money to them.
Yeah,
they've been commanded to by God, and it's like, just, I don't care if you spend that 10% of your income, like, I don't care if you spend it. I just wish you'd actually put it towards an actual charity, a well-researched, good charity where at least a higher percentage of that will actually go towards
to help people.
Because your church is not helping; it's just hoarding.
Yeah, well, and that's why any charity these days you've really got to research, because even the private ones, you have to look at how much of their cost goes into overhead and how much actually gets to helping people.
Oh yeah, you do have to research that. I'm not saying that, just pick a charity and go. It's, you really do need to research, because there are charities out there that sound like they're doing a lot of good, and like maybe 5% of what they're bringing in actually goes to the charity that, whatever.
Yeah, well, like, the March of Dimes I can no longer support, because once you go through all the numbers, it looks like only like 7 cents out of the dollar is actually getting to the people they're supposed to be helping. Most of it winds up getting eaten up in the salaries of the employees.
Yeah, I think Red Cross has also.
Yeah, the Red Cross is not doing well on that score either.
Yeah, one of, let's see, I know Network Lared, which deals with LGBTQ plus youth and college age students is mostly their target. Although if you're a little bit older, they will help you. But they often do things like, if you become homeless because you're LGBTQ plus, they won't help put you in the home themselves, but they have the information to get you to a home. They also have courses on like safe sex practices. They have courses on how to tell different kinds of abuse, because it's kind of obvious to most people what physical abuse looks like, but we're really lacking in telling people what mental abuse looks like. We've gotten better, and also people don't realize that financially
It's harder to see, I suppose, isn't it? Really,
yeah, it is harder to see.
Mental abuse.
There were times where in my life where I was in relationships, and I was like, well, he doesn't hit me, so it's not abusive.
Yeah, there's no bruises there that you can see physically. It's all mental.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but I researched and saw like how much money they were actually spending on themselves, how much money that they were actually, what resources they were actually providing. Were they just claiming they were providing it? Because you can claim you're providing things all day long. But yeah, that one's one of my personal favorite charities, and when I have a little bit to throw at something, that's the one I picked. Although lately, with all of the things going on, usually anything that I have winds up going to another atheist, because things have been kind of rotten for a lot.
Yeah, that's what I've been finding in the last year, that anytime I had any money to spare, there was someone in the community who needed help.
Yeah. And I've benefited from that myself, so I don't mind sharing that along.
Well, I would have never been able to move if it wasn't for all the help people sent me. So, it's like I've got a lot to pay back there.
I would not have gotten my computer, my microphone, or my first headsets that I got at the same time as my computer after my first computer broke. I wouldn't have that without y'all.
Yeah, well, and I've gotten, besides the move, help in a lot of other ways. The camera I have was Neil's. He managed to upgrade to a better one, so he sent me his old camera. Otherwise, I wouldn't have one at all.
Yeah. With Patreon, I've gotten a couple of things with Patreon. I bought a camera clamp because my camera on my laptop, I can't figure out why it works half the time and why it doesn't. There's no thing to tell me, and I'm not technical.
Yeah, unfortunately, if you have an older laptop, the connections on the circuit boards can get kind of flaky, and it could just have to do with how much it's heated up if it's caused the connection to separate somewhere.
This computer's not that old. It's less than a year, I think.
Oh, okay. So it's a pretty new one still.
It's a new one, and I don't know if it was refurbished or not. If it was, that might have to do with it, but I haven't had it but a year. In fact, 2 days ago was my 1-year YouTube anniversary.
Yeah.
But I couldn't celebrate it. I would have done a live stream, but I can't live stream. So
2 years old. 2 candles on your cake?
Huh?
I said you're 2 years old, so 2 candles on your cake?
1 year.
On your cake? 1 year. Did you just say you're 2 years old?
I've only been on YouTube for 1 year. It would have been 1 year on the 13th, but like I said, I can't live stream.
It seems like forever. To me, it feels like you've been on a lot longer than that.
Yeah, I had the same feeling.
Well,
it also feels to me like I've been on a lot longer than I have. But
well, it also might help that we're in the middle of a whole bunch of bullshit in real life, and it feels like 3 lifetimes have passed since 2019 alone.
Well, that too.
Yeah.
Because
we're kind of in limbo.
I'm amazed at how long I've been on. Because it feels like only yesterday that I got started, but I got started 2 years ago. Call it more or less March of 18.
Yeah, and what I really should have done was I really should have posted my first video, and I probably will do that sometime this weekend. Just posted my first video because I have a lot of people who talk to me now that didn't know me before and might see it.
Yeah, I've noticed. An odd thing I've noticed, it seems that there was like a sudden influx of us that all started about 2 years ago.
Yeah, there was. There was.
Right around March 2018, which is also when I started this channel. I had been active on YouTube for about 6 months under another name before that. But yeah, it's like, right around March, April of 2018, it seems there were a whole bunch of us that started that same time.
Cirrus actually got started around that time, a little bit earlier than we did, if I remember correctly, but he took off like a rocket.
Actually, because I've brought that up a number of times, that I actually started before Cirrus did.
Yes, I had talked to him prior to his starting a channel. I was already I was already on the air. I didn't have my own channel, but I was on the air with Michael Jones, the NCG studio.
YouTube deleted my channel twice before Cirrus started.
Jeez.
Oh, jeez.
That's why this channel's only 2 years old, because they wiped out the other account.
I'm realizing I think I was actually talking to y'all a little bit for about a month or two, maybe even 3 or 4. Talking to y'all in the chats. I was actually using my real name at the time, for a bit. Just getting to know y'all.
Yeah, I thought that had come up that you had been in some of the side chats with me for a couple of
Yeah,
months.
it was actually Diana who suggested that since I was really the only person in the chat and there were a lot of questions, Diana actually bugged you into letting me on, Purple. So it's y'all's fault. I blame you.
Okay, then.
I blame you for all the pain I've gone through with YouTube, and it's been a lot.
Yep. Well, I blame it all on Kate.
There you go.
I would not be here except that after my surgery, I was searching YouTube for 80s animation, so that brought up Bionic Dance.
There you
And
go.
that's what got me into all this.
Doorknob, I really haven't reached out to Dr. Jones. In a way, I'm kind of afraid to. It was a bit on the acrimonious side that we parted ways. Were you there that day when Bob Graves started going on about how psychiatry was a bunch of crap and he was a life coach and knew better than any psychiatrist about mental health issues and everything else? There were a bunch of us. There were a bunch of people in the side chat, and I have to say most of them were my subscribers, who really jumped all over the both of them. Jumped all over Graves, jumped all over Jones. And after the show was over, Dr. Jones said to me, "I thought you would stand up for me." And I had to say, "Well, Dr. Jones, I didn't agree with you." And my word, he took that as if I had told him that he was the devil. I figured, okay, I have to get out of here. And yeah, I really haven't talked to him since then. I mean, he's a nice guy and everything, but I don't know that I belong there.
I would struggle with that too, because mental health, I don't know everything that there is to know about mental health, and I'm sure that there are places where I'm completely ignorant on, but mental health is a big thing for me. I know so many people who have fallen through the cracks because they can't find the right kind of therapy near them, or it's too expensive, or or there's all that stigma and they're afraid of going. I've had friends argue, they'll put me on medication, and it's like, but if the medication helps and that's what you need, then go get it.
I don't know. Maybe I'm partly to blame for the whole thing. I don't know how much of an arse or how much of an ass I was, but that's basically what brought it to an end. Anyway, shoot, honey.
Yeah, and Seraphim Hyde was bringing up that a lot of people only have Christian therapies available.
Yeah.
Run into. That's something that I run into a lot. Is I want religion kept out of it. I don't straight up say that I am atheist anymore, but I ask them to keep any sort of religion out of it. I've found that religious practices of any sort do absolutely nothing for me.
Yeah.
I remember Shannon Q going on air about Christian therapy and not liking it at all, and saying so in so many words.
Yeah, I've run into that myself, and it's actually the biggest reason why I'd be reluctant to seek any more therapy is because between the religious overtones and I really am hypersexual and I don't have any problem with that, it's like it's hard to get a therapist to focus on the things that I think really are issues and not get into those.
Oh, yeah. Like, for me, my asexuality is not a problem. It doesn't bug me for the most part. There are things that happened because of it that caused me trauma, but they always want to blame the asexuality and treat that instead of trying to treat the trauma. Because the end game for me is not to be sexual. The end game for me is to be okay enough to where if I decide that I actually do want to date somebody, it doesn't feel like a life or death situation. Because I know that's not really how I should be looking at that. I know that logically, but emotionally, I'm usually like, this is one hell of a risk. This person could kill me. And while that can be true, the extreme to which my brain takes it is not a healthy place to be.
I think Christian therapy is literally counterproductive.
I tend to agree with you. Yeah.
I've seen marriage. I know a couple. This is just one instance, but I've seen it a lot. The husband was extremely religious. The wife was pretty much an atheist. She didn't really care. She wasn't not a self-professing atheist, but she was. And they wanted to go to marriage counseling, and basically, she said all the preacher wanted to do was talk about God, and that had nothing to do with the issues in the marriage.
Mm.
And so it completely failed. They ended up divorced, and I felt really bad for them because it probably actually caused more harm than it did good. It actually probably caused a divorce, whereas this lady and this man were willing to go to counseling to try to save their marriage.
Yeah.
And maybe it was not salvageable, maybe it was. But without actually addressing the issues of the marriage and just talking about Jesus loves you, it doesn't help. It made it worse.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I actually had a counselor try to convert me. And I was like, no, Sharon, we're not going there.
Okay, I got to ask questions here. Seraphim asked, was mentioned that she didn't tell her counselor about her promiscuity or sex. I can't remember exactly how she phrased it. But anyway, she said that she didn't want to talk to him because she is polyamorous and pansexual. Could someone define those two terms for me? There's so many out there, I forget them jumbled up in my brain.
I can take
Polyamorous,
that
you
as-
really like poly. And pansexual, you have this thing about kitchen equipment. No.
yeah.
I can take that because I identify as both of those.
Oh, I'll show
That polyamorous is just having more than one partner at a time. Which is with their full knowledge. It's not cheating on anyone. It's that everyone involved knows everything that's going on, and everybody is okay with everybody having multiple partners.
Yeah, I like the way Orla put it. Yeah, is consensual non-monogamy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And pansexual is basically extending bisexual to the idea that there are more than two genders. That I am open to the possibility of having a relationship with people regardless of what gender they might be.
Male, female, trans.
There are definitely more than two genders.
Okay. So this leads me to more questions. Things I don't even know how to go into this without. I don't know how far to go, but
Oh, just drop it out. It's I don't think anybody's going to be offended. You're actually looking for information here.
Well, Seraphim, Yes,
Well, I
I
just have to be careful because this has to do with my girlfriend, and I don't know exactly how much,
Right. Okay.
But my girlfriend is bisexual. Um, but I guess there's my day word for it because like she wants a relationship with me, only me, and I guess we're both polyamorous or whatever.
Hmm.
Um,
Hey,
once again with me, like she is the focus of my life. She's the only one I want to have a quote relationship, but we've also discussed you know other sexual relationships with other people or whatever. um does that fit under polyamory, or is there a different word where there's an exclusive relationship and then possibly uh playing with other people?
Well, that would go more what Orla was saying about consensual non-monogamy.
Hmm.
And Sir Ephraim pointed out that, yeah, you should check Cyrus's channel. He has done several videos on it because he is in a polyamorous relationship.
Hmm. Okay, yeah, and to tell you the truth, um my girlfriend has opened up a lot to me because of my extreme religious background. Um, Homosexuals were fags, and they were bad, and it was unthinkable, to even think of a man in any kind of way. And now I'm just wondering if that isn't all just indoctrinated crap that has been put in my mind.
Hmm.
Um, so I guess if that fits under the bi-curious or whatever, then maybe so. I haven't acted on anything. It doesn't mean I won't. I might, say I've talked to my girlfriend about it, and she's cool with it. So I'm just really curious. I've always known that I'm a sexual being and that I am straight as far as relationships and so forth. But if you're just throwing down sex, who knows? Uh, that's kind of where I am right now, and it's kind of a different and awkward for me to talk about that because it's so new to me.
Well, it's all very natural, isn't it? I mean, if you're feeling it, then it's natural. So, what's the problem? You can explore it. It's other people's issue if they have a problem with it.
Exactly, and that's
Yep.
where I'm wondering if I didn't make the whole homosexual thing an issue in my own mind, and like it's I almost wonder if that's just something I'm just still trying to work through.
Well, I know how that can be, with other subjects of stuff that got programmed into you as a kid can be really hard to even notice you're doing it, and to get rid of it even after you're aware of it. I realized that, yeah, there were some pretty racist attitudes my father had that I didn't realize I had picked up until I was in my 20s and 30s. So yeah, it requires a lot of introspection of, realizing how you're reacting to people and consciously analyzing, is that really what I wanted to do? Or is there a better way I should be doing that?
Right, and so where I'm at now is like, am I totally straight just because of religion? Or I can't answer that. I do know that I do like female parts and females. I love females, and as far as relationships, that's what I'm interested in. But sexually, I don't know anymore. Don't know.
It's kind of a fair question because there are a lot of people who I don't think religion necessarily changed their sexuality so much as taught them ways of thinking about it, to where they either repressed something, or if they didn't repress, they wound up, in the case of some people who are sexually attracted to more than one gender, to where they picked the approved gender and just went with that. I don't think that religion can actually change your sexuality. I just think that it can change how you interact with it, if that makes sense.
How exactly? I think that's what I'm struggling with right now. If I could say struggling, but I'm not too worried about it because I just don't care anymore. Um, I'm to the point now. If some guy's attractive or whatever, then hell, I might give it a go. You know, why the hell not? As long as they understand where I'm standing and what my position is, so they don't misinterpret what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the way I feel about it, that as long as everyone involved is communicating honestly and openly, it's any relationship should only be defined by the people involved, and what anyone else thinks of it is nobody's business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I had to determine whether or not my asexuality was brought on by the way I was brought up. And I kind of have a funny story about that. I have very, very close relatives, like within the first cousin's range. I have at least 3 relatives who are asexual. And one of them's like one of those Easter morning Christians where they basically only go for like Easter and Christmas. They're not really religious, and they had a little bit of a Christian upbringing, but it was like sporadic and stuff, and they're ace. It apparently runs in my family.
Well, there you go. It's biological. There's a large part of it, at least, that's biological. Just by you saying that, like that can't be that common, can it really?
I was raised around these people pretty much constantly, and it just like we come from different backgrounds when it comes to religion. And yet all 3 of us are ace. Now, what I had to determine was it was like, am I repressing or is this just how I am? And because there have been times where I have repressed things. And I know what that feels like. And I'm like, no, those feelings just never really were there in the first place. Like when I was in high school, I watched all of my friends struggle with dating and stuff like that, because you're not allowed to date until you're 16 in the Mormon church, and you're only supposed to go on group dates and not actually have like a boyfriend. And I watched so many people struggle with that, and I understand why now. I didn't as a teen, because as a teen I was going like, why would I even care about
You didn't care.
me? Yeah, it was just like
You had no feelings for it. Yeah.
I was happy with my books. I was happy with my school. I was happy with just like going home and playing video games. It didn't bug me. And I had no clue how hard it was for anybody else until I started realizing that I was different and started to realize that, hey, I don't struggle with this. This is not something that I've ever had to worry about. And
lucky you, really.
I was lucky until I hit college. Until I hit college, I was fine. Most people here know that I've struggled with getting medication and at times because of my asexuality. And
I'm just joking around, having a bit of fun. All I'm saying is that relationships can be a pain in the butt.
They can.
As sexual relationships, yeah. So
yeah, but there's a part of me that would kind of like a quasi-platonic or a queer platonic relationship, one that's not really romantic, but still has kind of partnership attributes to
closeness.
it. Yeah, there's a closeness. There are things that
and caring and
nice. Yeah, it would be.
It makes perfect sense. There's more to those kind of loving relationships than just it being a sexual thing. Like there is so much more to it. It's not all about the sex. So
and I'm kind of, and I can act romantically if I care enough about somebody. But I'm not naturally romantic. and it shows.
But
I get-
cuddling's romantic, hugging, touching,
Wait,
anything
here's
like
the
that,
thing,
which is
cuddling
nice.
is not romantic to me. Cuddling
Right.
is not romantic.
Yeah, okay.
I can cuddle with anybody who I trust and is a close enough friend, but that's not romantic to me.
Right. Okay. Yep.
So for most people, that is romantic. Now, I understand that if I feel like that's not romantic and somebody else does, and I'm not feeling the same way about it, I completely understand why somebody can be frustrated with that.
Yeah, to me, the cuddling, that starts bleeding over into the emotional connection.
Yes,
Because
but
there are people I've had sex with that I would not have been comfortable cuddling with.
yes, but remember, Purple, I care about my closest friends as deeply as most people care about romantic partners.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying it. That's a pretty blurry area in there. It's hard to make real distinctions.
That's why I say that I'm gray arrow, because there are some things that I can be kind of romantic about. And then there are others where it's like, it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It's something I do with friends anyhow. Like, I don't mind cuddling with friends at all, if they're close enough. I don't cuddle with all my friends. There's a certain level that you have to hit before I'm comfortable enough. But I do have friends who I'm not romantically involved with, I don't have romantic feelings for, that I would be willing to do stuff with. And also, fun fact, I cannot be in a romantic and asexual relationship with the same person. Those don't go together.
Say that again. I don't understand.
I cannot be in a sexual relationship with a romantic partner.
Oh, okay.
It does not; those two don't mix.
Yeah, and 6 months ago, I probably would not have understood that. It's only because I've spent so much time talking to you that I'm starting to get what you mean here.
Yeah, all of those things are completely different for me. And I also am not 100% sure that I've ever felt romantic attraction in my life. I have felt an attraction that leads to me wanting a partnership with somebody. But from what I can tell, and because everything is so blurry for me and so nebulous, and there's an exact word for it, but I'm not 100% sure I've ever felt romantic attraction before. I might have. There's a couple of times I could have, but I'm thinking it was something else. I'm sorry, Seraphim. We didn't mean to make you sad.
Well, I'm not getting what Seraphine means by having derailed the video.
No, you haven't derailed anything. Nobody's derailed anything. There's really not.
Yeah, that's pretty much my format, is we just randomly wander from topic to topic, whatever people are talking about.
Yeah, the kind of relationship that I want is called queer platonic, quasi platonic, or some people call it quirky platonic, where it's it's more committed than a friendship, but it operates a lot like a mix between a friendship and a romantic relationship. And some queer platonics don't have any romantic elements at all.
Yeah, well, and
for mine, it would be a combo.
Most people wind up thinking that Sloth Girl and I are a couple, but there's really nothing romantic and there is nothing sexual. But just the way that we react with each other, everyone assumes that we're, like a couple, like we're dating or married.
I did. I shouldn't have, but I did.
No, like I say, that's the common reaction. And, it's like I'm not sure what part of it gives people that impression, but whatever.
Because people mistake intensity for romance.
Yeah, well, and the one thing that we have together is we literally have a lifetime of history. Her mother babysat for me when she was pregnant with her. I have literally known her all her life.
Yeah, well, and in my case, Capstrophine is like one of my people. She is a ride or die, hell and back friend. A lot of people romantically code us, and it's like, no, we're like, we don't think of each other that way. We're practically sisters, but it's because people think intensity equals either sexual or romantic.
Yeah.
Not the case. There are so many people who are friends who have these intense friendships that are more meaningful sometimes than family relationships or romantic ones. And that's actually kind of the kind of person that I would like to have. Although, in my case, it wouldn't be more important than family because of Hufflepuff. If it wasn't for Hufflepuff, that'd be a little bit different. But
It's about love.
yeah,
Bottom line, it's about love. It doesn't matter your sexual feelings or whatever. It's loving people and being able to care about them.
And loving them in a way that you and the other person can accept and have your needs met. Because
understanding. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I guess that's part of what people pick up is that I am very protective of her.
So, Purple, I have a question for you.
That's love.
I'm almost 50 years old, and basically, since I'm now divorced for a year now, and I have a girlfriend that I've been dating for about 8 months now, who's really opened up a lot to me. Things that I never could have imagined. Basically, I'll just get a little specific. Basically, sex for me was pretty much missionary, and my girlfriend now is the first person to have even seen me touch myself at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're talking about she hasn't.
So that could be a hangover from religion as well.
Oh, it is. I guarantee you.
Yeah.
And she is, like I said, bisexual. She also is a trained dom and has an extremely high sex drive. And so where I'm at now is out of consideration for her. I'm almost 50 years old, and frankly, I can't keep up with her. I just can't, So that's why I've been very open to the fact with her. Hey, you know what? If I'm not filling the bill, not emotionally, not anything as far as our relationship, but just to make her happy sexually. I'm kind of we're at least at the stage of talking. It's like, yeah, maybe if you need to have a playmate, then fine. That is an extremely different position for me to ever have taken before, and it's literally out of consideration for her. If anything like that was to happen, it would probably be a couple or something, so I could play a little bit or whatever. But it's mostly about taking care of her. So I guess what I'm asking you, Purple, is in that situation, I know you're a different person with different perspective than me, but does that seem like a normal or a reasonable thing?
Yeah. Well, even though, I'm very sexual, there are certain things I didn't get into. There were a couple of kinks my fiance had that I didn't really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So, there were times that she would bring someone else home so she could indulge in those things. And I would either go out or I'd sometimes even just, be in the next room on the computer while they were playing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, because I knew she had certain desires that I was not comfortable being part of. But I didn't want her to feel deprived of that.
And how did
everything between consenting adults is fine.
Yeah.
What's the problem?
Yeah. Well,
that's
that's basically, it was just a lot of discussion to lay out the guidelines for our relationship. And, we just came to the agreement that basically anything is okay as long as we both know in advance who the other person's going to be with. You know, even if we're not there at the time,
being
that
honest and
if I
upfront.
was going out to meet someone else, that she knew who I was going to be with.
Yeah, honesty.
Yeah,
You know, it just takes a lot of communication.
I've only
Yeah.
thrown down one thing which she completely agreed with, and that was there's a couple of people that she's had relationships over years, and I know that they're safe. So I told her straight up, you can do whatever you want to with them. As far as I'm concerned, at any time you want to, I don't care. It's just that I'm concerned about new people or whatever, because I don't want her to get in a bad situation, obviously.
Yeah, nobody wants to hurt anybody.
And so I told her, I says, you know, if it's a little questionable or whatever, then even if I'm in the next room or whatever, fine, you know.
Yeah, I think the important things are to not be over controlling and to also be honest as possible, because I've heard people say that if you're not honest in a how bad it is to not be honest in a monogamous relationship, how terrible that has to be. Now you're throwing more people into the mix, and now you're not being honest about it. You're dealing with so much more. It's a bad idea to you know, not talk about those kinds of things. But yeah, and honestly, I wish I could pull off polyam, but I don't think I'm polyamorous. It would be nice if I could because of how things work for me.
Well, but then again, you say that, you know, emotionally the way you feel about your friends, multiple. So, you know, in that level, you're kind of doing it.
I understand that, but when I get into trying it, the Mormon baggage comes rolling in.
Right. Yeah. And that's, you know, with everything, there's a lot of problems if there's old tapes playing in your head. Even if you know they don't really apply anymore, it's hard to get rid of them.
Oh, yeah. Because, like, I was talking with a friend the other day, just like chatting and stuff, and he and I were just talking about general things. And like this conversation, it ran all over the place. And we got onto the subject of being polyamorous. And I said, well, because of how Mormons treat polygamy still and how they treat women in the church still, I have a lot of baggage to where I was taught that if I didn't make my husband happy, now they don't say this directly to you, but you kind of get the gist in your brain, even if it doesn't come to your, you know, to your conscious part of the brain. But they pretty much teach you, especially the deep old doctrine, that if you didn't make your husband happy, he could technically choose not to be your wife or not to be your husband anymore in the next life. Like your husband could cast you off essentially. And I know that there are certain areas that I cannot do something for an allosexual. I can't keep up with an allosexual at all. There's no way.
Okay. Yeah.
What's an allosexual?
Not asexual. The opposite of you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I know I couldn't keep up with an allosexual, and there's always that nagging part of me that says, well, he could just find somebody who brings the entire package for him and then leave you. And that does happen, but in a non-toxic polyamorous relationship, that's not how that works. And even if I were in a non-toxic one with a good person, I would still have those feelings in the back of my brain. And I don't think it would be fair unless I have those feelings under enough control to not make it toxic, that I don't know that I could pull it off.
It's
So has
complicated.
anybody dabbled into BDSM or submissive dominant stuff?
Oh yeah. My fiance actually was a professional dominatrix before I met her,
Mm-hmm.
and she was a lesbian. So yeah, it really was the only way she could actually relate to having a man with her was I had to, be quite submissive. Which wasn't a problem for him, and that wasn't something that I really felt I was compromising on. I'm actually much more relaxed letting someone else take control of the situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my girlfriend is a trained dom, and basically she says if you're a dom, you have to sub so you understand, and so she has done it, but very rarely.
You need training for that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You don't just do it.
Yeah. The reason is there's a lot of dangerous things that can happen, and you got to know what the heck
Okay,
you're doing
yeah.
when
Yeah,
you're striking and so forth.
There's classes you can take, actual classes where you go in and you get lectures. You can ask questions to people who have done these things for a while. You can also do practice sessions as well. A lot of people go to dungeons
Mm-hmm.
for their first times because then you have a person who's monitoring everything,
Yeah.
sure that things stay safe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and depending on what kind of things are being involved in the scene, yeah, some of it can get quite dangerous. So
you can't just jump into it not knowing what the heck you're doing.
Yeah,
I
the
can
person
relate to it
the person
when you put it
doming needs
that
to be
way.
completely aware of where the people subbing are, where their headspace is. Because like you can have safe words in that, but if something unexpectedly trips a psychological trigger, you can have somebody who's unable to say their safe word but desperately needs to get out of it, and the dom needs to be able to know how to identify that.
And actually, that did happen to me once. My ex-girlfriend had been raped or whatever, and for whatever reason, in that particular time, at that particular moment, she went there and she was unresponsive. And so I had to bring her back out and so forth, and that was pretty traumatic for both of us. We worked through that, but so yeah, but like the choking thing that always comes up. Like with the choking thing, you're not literally choking someone. It's very, very different, and to get someone used to doing that, you'll start out with what they call breath control and so forth, where it's like you just literally put a hand over a mouth like this, and you're just restricting some air and so forth to get used to it. But you can't just go in there and choke someone; you can kill them.
Yeah, I can see how that could potentially get a bit serious and dangerous.
Well, and not only that, like strikes and so forth. A lot of the strikes, when you see the beatings and so forth, that you can have sessions without ever having sex.
Yeah.
Without any sex, and it has to do with getting basically it's like altering the consciousness, altering the state of your mind, almost like going into a dream state. So there's a lot of different things I'm learning about that are really different.
Yeah, people can get into very altered mental states, with the right kind of stimulation, and it can be as intense as any hallucinogenic drug.
I would argue that it is literally better than any kind of drug that can be manufactured. It's just one of those things. But everything has to be done right.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm kind of experimenting with that a lot. Now my girlfriend is subbing to me a lot, so I guess technically when we're together we're switches. But I know that if it was anywhere outside of our relationship, because there's a trust factor or whatever, um, she probably wouldn't want to do that at all.
Okay, so
Yeah.
guys, I'm gonna have to jump out. My
Okay.
family's downstairs and saying, "Dad, come on, we're having dinner." Blah blah blah. So, look, I've loved chatting with you guys. You're all very open and honest, and it's been good, mate. And I'd like to come back and pop in again.
Oh yeah,
and,
come in
and say
anytime.
hello. So, yeah. So thanks, mate, and yeah, all the best to everybody, all the people in the chat too, and
Yep.
I'll catch you next time.
It's nice to meet you.
Okay.
You
Yep.
too.
We'll catch you later.
Bye, guys.
Yeah, anybody who's not familiar with Art Against Ignorance, you should check out his channel. He's done some very good music parodies. He had also helped me with doing my Christmas Carol. So if anybody saw that last Christmas. But yeah, as far as the BDSM scenes and that, I really didn't get into that kind of stuff until I was with my fiance.
Mhm.
You know, and actually it was just when I was just starting to explore it that I met her. And it turned out one of the problems for me was that things that triggered some old memories, I would completely detach from the situation. So I was, you know, not communicating in any way, and
Mhm.
sometimes became completely unresponsive.
Yeah, I've kind of gotten to that point in time, but because my girlfriend knew what the heck she was doing, she was actually, it's almost kind of cruel, kind of funny too. But she brought me out of that and then took me even deeper. But I was responsive later. You know,
Hmm.
it's very, very interesting how that can go.
Yeah, well, and that's why it is something you have to approach carefully and work up to, because if you're going to be subbing, you need an incredible level of trust in the Dom. You know, you need to make sure this is somebody who is actually going to be concerned about your welfare.
Right. I've told my girlfriend that I don't think at this point in time I could sub to anyone else. Maybe in the future if there was someone else, but it's kind of weird how those relationships work, because no matter what, she would always be my real dom or my real lady or
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it. I could kind of pretend or whatever with someone else possibly, but I still even wouldn't want to do that unless she was there.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. I really feel it's rather unlikely that I could ever, you know, do those kind of scenes that I did with my fiance with anyone else.
Hmm.
You know, and it would definitely, it could only happen if it's somebody that we spent quite a lot of time building a relationship, so that I knew, you know, they knew how I was going to react. Because one of the things that I know is my body language is not typical.
Hmm.
So somebody trying to read my body language usually gets things horribly wrong.
Right, right. I imagine with you, you'd have to have a lot of verbal communication, which actually kind of screws up the whole subspace thing in itself.
Well, no, it really is that they've got to learn me.
Hmm.
And you know, it's basically like having a partner who speaks a different language and you have to learn their language. That's what somebody would have to do with me for me to be able to do that again.
And I think if either one of my girlfriend or myself were to sub or anything, I think probably one of the others should be there. Um, because once again, I know her tells. and she knows mine. She knows exactly where I'm at, where somebody else may not, you know. And she wouldn't even have to be involved necessarily, but just her being there and watching would definitely be a big plus.
Yeah, well, and that can be a very valuable thing too, is just, having someone who is even sitting on the sideline watching for things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's definitely within the last 8 months now. I went from zero to doing things that I never imagined I would do. It took me about 3 or 4 months before I could actually strike my girlfriend at all.
That was very much what happened to me with my fiance. That I was just kind of curious about the BDSM stuff, and I had started just looking for it online, literally just a couple of months before I ran into her in the chat room.
That's kind of funny because that's how it happened with me. But I met my girlfriend on Bumble, and none of that ever came up. And then eventually, when we made it to the bedroom, I could just see her testing me and testing me and testing my limits. And I was like, what is going on here? Because she hadn't mentioned that she was Dom before. But I figured out something was going on real quick because she was so careful about testing my limits. She would, back off at just the right time every time. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Well, and it's a matter of making a unique connection, because it's like I say, my fiance was a lesbian, and it was like after talking online for a month or so, she's like, she never thought she could have a relationship with a man, but then she was saying that I'm just not displaying most of the mannerisms that put her off about men.
Yeah, I think with me, that's a lot of the reason why my girlfriend feels comfortable subbing with me, and she has been in the BDSM community for about 30 years. Not always active, but that says something about our relationship is what I'm saying. That all of a sudden with me, she feels comfortable, which I think that's great. It shows a lot
Yeah.
about our relationship.
So I missed a bunch of people leaving all at once, huh?
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people are winding down. I guess that depending on what part of the world they're in, people are either going to bed or going to work.
Yeah, I was about to say it's 5 a.m. here.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
sorry, but yeah.
Well, maybe this is a good point to
Yeah.
turn it off for the night, because I've got to try to get some sleep, and I've got to be awake in the daylight to do things.
Ew, you have to be a day walker? Son of a bitch.
Well,
Oh,
unfortunately, the neighbors get annoyed with me running power tools after midnight, so I have to keep that to the daylight hours.
I know, but they never considered us night owls. They always say it's like you'd have to be like all nice and quiet at night, and then you go to sleep, and then they're like, nope, we're gonna be as loud as we want. Screw you if you want sleep during the day.
Yeah, well, and I've actually had run-ins with police officers just for doing what I considered normal things at odd hours, like trying to fix my truck at 2:00 in the morning, and a police officer thought that was suspicious. I was laying under it, and I had to produce the driver's license and the title and everything to prove it was my vehicle I was working on.
That actually sounds kind of familiar. My entire house is a bunch of night owls. My dad is currently, he's gotten home from work, but he was at work a couple hours ago. My sister is like watching cat videos and probably won't go to bed for another 2 hours. My mom, when she was alive, just if you try to wake her up before 10, like because she would be up all night, and if you try to wake her up before 10, yeah, you just didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I really never fall into a solid sleep until after sunrise.
Oh, geez. All right. Well, I'm going to get out of here.
Okay.
It's
Yep.
been great being here.
Well,
I am going
thanks
to leave.
everybody. You're certainly all welcome back next week if you've got the time.
And it was a nice meeting you, Tria.
Nice meeting you too.
All right,
Okay.
you guys have a good evening or good morning.
So everybody in the side chat, thanks for coming. And we will see you next time.
Night, y'all.